and sound and compete with the big boys and girls and the type of stuff that they make. So it just goes to show you how accessible really good equipment is if you know what you're looking for and you know what to prioritize. So again, the $1,000 I'm going to spend with you here ultimately is going to get you something that I think you'll be satisfied with as it relates to production value. But I also need to set this out from the very beginning. I'm assuming that you have a capable PC or Mac. We're going to need your computer to record things or stream it or switch cameras or adjust the audio. So we will need that. I also need you to have like a reasonable space. I don't mean reasonable space on that computer, although that helps, but I mean like an actual physical location for this home studio setup. And that matters. We have other videos on that here on the channel, what to look for acoustically, ambient noises from outside, natural lighting during the daytime, how to create a space that's always ready, but you need a reasonable space. I won't go too far into that here. I'm also assuming that you have an Ethernet connection, not just a Wi-Fi connection, but a hard-lined Ethernet connection, especially if you're live streaming. That's going to be fundamental here. And also some kind of internet speed, a reasonable internet speed to do live streaming. But if you're just recording videos, yeah, maybe you don't need any of that stuff. Also, software to do encoding, either recording and or encoding, and obviously live streaming. And a lot of this software is free, including OBS, which I highly recommend. I've never been an Ecamm or a StreamYard user. I've been on the guest side of those platforms, and they're very good from all that I can understand. But you will need some sort of software to record what you're about to produce, as well as potentially live stream it or change cameras or put graphics on it or adjust the audio levels. But again, at least in terms of OBS, you can get that really good and it's free. But I'm assuming that you have all of that. Okay, let's start spending here. Let's begin with the camera. Let's get the Insta360 Link webcam. It does cost about $285, more than most webcams, but it has tremendous features that others don't have figured out. It's actually an AI webcam, an artificial intelligence webcam. It's got this cool thing where you can make like hand shapes, like an L shape, and do this, and the camera will tilt up and down and pan left and right. Yeah, it's a PTZ webcam, pan, tilt, zoom webcam. Now, optically, I don't know how much it's actually zooming versus digitally. I think it's all digital zoom, and I'm not here to mess around really with the zoom of it. But the panning and tilting alone, think about this. Even in my home studio here, if I wanted it to show you the roof real fast, or the ceiling, or what's on that wall, or this wall, or a close-up of maybe the rack mount unit, I can't even do that here. But that would be a very cool feature to have, a PTZ webcam. The picture quality on this, I don't own it, but I've seen it. It looks quite well, especially when lit properly. So I can highly recommend the visuals that I've seen from this camera. It's got an aperture, a low aperture setting of wide open at 1.8. So you can create a little bit of depth of field. It's not to say that you're going to have the same, picture quality as a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. I mean, it still is a webcam. It still is a $285 webcam, but you are going to get some pop out of your picture and some features to go along with it. Okay, audio interface, I'm going to recommend the PreSonus Revelator IO24. I do have one of these. I still can't believe it only cost $150. You can get like a good interface for $150, but you're getting real-time DSP, effects to go with it, EQ, compression, special effects. You can also monitor yourself in real time, zero latency through the headphone jack out the back, and best of all, it's USB-C powered. You don't need a separate power adapter, a brick to plug in elsewhere. Your computer itself will literally power this through USB-C. PreSonus has come out with this product, which is, I think, existed for maybe about 2 years, 1.5, 2 years while I'm recording this. It does a lot. This is so powerful. I use this for my remote rig. It's got 2-channel inputs. It's got virtual inputs, so you can play stuff on your computer like a soundboard back through the PreSonus, I believe it's called Universal Control software. You can also create mix minuses for Zoom guests, for Microsoft Team guests. It is very versatile. It's way too much, like in terms of features and value, for $150. So I feel like we're getting a steal with the Revelator IO24. This is going to be your audio interface. Everything will go through this on its way to being recorded by OBS or something else. All right, your microphone. I'm going to recommend the Rode NT1. $180. It is a condenser microphone, so quite sensitive. It will pick up room noise, more on that in just a second, but very low self noise, not a lot of hiss, not a lot of problems. And it also comes with accessories like a shock mount and a pop filter. So those are included in the $180 price. Look, I'm using a Neumann U87 AI. Quite the different price point between this microphone and that microphone. And you know how I feel about this one. Love it to death. But I'm also here to tell you, at that price and this Rode quality, that is a very good pickup. You can do, like, let's say 80% of this with that for $180. Yeah. So the Rode NT1 is the mic that I'm going to recommend for your home studio. It's just going to have that condenser clarity, intelligibility with speech. I know a lot of people will say, yeah, but it's not going to reject noise like a dynamic. Yeah, that might be true, but I'm not done spending your money yet. You'll see why in a second. The GVM 800D light kit, there's actually two lights just like that. They come with stands, they come with carrying cases, but for $200, you can use one for a key, one for a fill, or maybe one for a fill, one for a backlight or an uplight. It's got full app and color changing controls, meaning that you can make all sorts of white lights from cool to warm white light, but you can also do different colors. You can do, kind of what I'm doing here in the background with different splashes of colors. So that's fun and that's valuable. For $200, you're getting quite the deal on that. And lighting is important, right? I mean, this goes to say that if you're going to spend the $1,000, we've got you with the good camera, we've got you with the audio interface, you can mix your sound coming in, you can bring in guests with the Revelator, the PreSonus Revelator. The microphone is good, the lighting is good here. People will often skimp out on the lighting. I'm definitely not here to do that for you in spending this $1,000. So where are we? $815 in. And I also realize that I don't want to go over, right? So there are taxes. You will need an XLR cable to connect the Rode into the PreSonus Revelator if you don't have that already. And you also need a mic stand. Maybe a boom arm, kind of like this. This is the PSA-1 actually from Rode. And they make way higher end mic boom arms than this. Yellowtech Mika. Look that one up. That one's on the wish list eventually. But yeah, like even a boom arm or a small stand. For example, you can get even a little stand like this for maybe $20 or $30. But I also realize that I'm trying to keep you at about $1,000 and we're getting close. We're at $815 plus taxes. So here's what I want you to do. Pay your taxes, get the cable if you need it, get a mic stand, but spend all the rest of your money. And hopefully it's about $100, depending on where you buy this stuff and how much savings you can get and what deals you can get. But if you can spend about $100 on acoustically treating your space, that's going to go so far for you. Trust me. $100. You can go to a Joann fabric store and kind of do what I did here in the home studio, create sound panels, or even just a big piece of fabric to go behind you and knock down some of the noise. Now, look, I don't know if you're recording just a podcast, if you're going to be on camera, off camera. It totally depends on what you're doing here. I guess we are creating a whole home studio with cameras and everything. But if you can treat your space with fabrics and blankets and curtains and things like that, things that absorb sound for your room, and it's going to make that NT1 mic sound really, really good, you can go a long way with $100 on that type of stuff. And it's going to make a huge difference, right? All we've talked about so far is equipment. Buy this model, get this brand, this type of, technical piece of hardware. But the thing that's going to make your studio stand out the best is literally what's going to make it sound the best. Yeah, we've got some good lights. We've got that for you. But how can you sound the best and not sound like you're in this echo chamber? You don't want this. You don't want your video to be, you don't want to put all that $1,000 in and ultimately be sounding like this. No, you don't. So acoustically treat your room. We've got more videos on that here on the channel, so check them out, how to do that. But you want to spend that much at the very end. So that's going to get you to $1,000. That goes quick, right? And you could see how it's tempting to spend $2,000 and $3,000 and $5,000. Can I get this better? And yes, you can down the road, but this just goes to show you, like, think of what $1,000, like, you invest that. Can your product and what you're going to do with your videos or your live streams or your presentations or your appearances on different shows and podcasts and all that stuff, if your setup is $1,000 worthy, how much is that going to pay off for you in the long run? 5 years down the road, is this $1,000 worth $10,000 of something it brought back to you? I think it could be. I really do. Thanks for being here on this channel, Home Studio Pro. I would appreciate if you subscribe, if you like this stuff. I've got plenty more coming right around the corner. I don't want you to miss it. Also, thumbs up on this video if it provided you some value. I'll see you next time. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. As you're well aware, I recently started this channel, and by the way, I really appreciate you for being here. And maybe I should have started everything with this video first. I should have published this one from the very start. Can't believe I didn't, but it's all about why you, yes, you need a professional home studio here in 2023, how you can benefit, how you can set it up, how easy it is for the returns that it will provide you. Because this applies to so many people across a broad spectrum of backgrounds and industries, and it really doesn't matter who you are or what you do. Are you somebody who's front-facing? Do you interface with a lot of your own employees or people in your industry or even just the general public? If you're addressing a large amount of people, and sometimes these days you're doing it from home, yeah, a home studio could do you quite well for image and background and overall production quality. Maybe you're somebody who is responsible for a brand, cultivating somebody else's brand, a company or an individual. Maybe it's your own brand that you're responsible for. A home studio can help you out there too. I'll explain in just a second. Content creators, obviously, but this goes along the lines of maybe somebody who was just all about their Substack and writing, and that's all they did. Or maybe they were just into podcasting, and now they're branching out into the video element. There's a lot of people crossing over platforms of content creation, and a home studio that's got audio and video obviously can serve all purposes. Maybe you're somebody, though, who's not a content creator or you're not any of the above things, but you are a frequent guest on podcasts, which nowadays involve a lot of video. And when you pop up on the screen, instead of coming in from your closet or your kitchen or your backyard and it's not a perfect setup, what if you show up and the background is a studio setup like this? Has a high production value. That's instantly going to elevate your appearance, how you resonate, no matter what you actually do or say on this guest appearance, right? Like the setup of how you come across subconsciously matters a lot. So even if you're just a podcast guest on other people's shows, a home studio, a set home studio is going to provide you with a lot of value and background. Or maybe you're just a virtual regular. You do a lot of internal Zoom calls with your own company or other companies, and they're expecting to see the typical, blurred background of artificial intelligence or the bookcase or, whatever the prototypical thing is these days. What if you show up with something that's really snazzy? Again, it all goes along the lines of image, how you present yourself, and how you come across in this new virtual format where people are doing a lot from their home studios. So a lot of different people can benefit. Your home studio in 2023, in my opinion, it opens up doors. It allows you to create a lot more content, reach a broader audience, many times for free. If you're in the restaurant business, and let's say you had a home studio to talk about the new items on your menu, the new drink you're serving, or even if you create the content at the location, at your brick and mortar location, maybe it's not a home studio, maybe it's an at-work studio, but same idea. Not a professional broadcast setup, but you can make it come across professionally no matter where you're recording. You can maximize your time in a home studio. You don't need to go somewhere to record something. Everything is already set up. And I've got another video about an always ready space, why that's so important, that you don't need to set up the camera every time or reposition the lights. If you have it set up, You come in, you push a couple buttons, you sit down, you hit record, and you get to making your content. You don't want your equipment to be a barrier to content creation. I also feel like most people can get a really good home studio setup or even one for their office for less than $1,000. Now, granted, what I've done here is a few multiplications over that. There's no question about that. But I'm telling you, and maybe I should do the video on the $1,000 gear setup. What would I buy? What would I prioritize? Because you could easily go over, right? But I firmly believe that you could get set up with everything you need for about $1,000 and have it look in that 90th percentile of quality. I think a home studio in 2023, when done right, when done with some help, when done with some consistency, it offers you professionalism. It doesn't look like you're at home. In fact, it looks like you've put in the effort to go somewhere to produce this video, right? It elevates the quality all around, and it just goes along with prestige. If you are in charge of a large amount of people or you're addressing a large amount of people, don't you want to come across like you've got the full background and support to go along with the message you're delivering and the presentation that you've put some effort into? Don't go the full 9 yards of getting everything lined up and set how you want and then figure that, well, the background doesn't really matter. It does. Think about you. Even sometimes the average viewer will say, where is that person? What are they doing? And we witness this a lot ever since 2020 when people are checking in a lot more from their home studios. What you have in your background, how you're lit, how you sound, it all matters. So here on this channel, if you're not already subscribing, maybe I'll throw out the bone right now. The opportunity, if you would subscribe right now, I would appreciate it. I'll be providing gear reviews, products you might be interested in. Again, maybe that $1,000 setup video is something that's right around the corner. What pieces of gear would I get to complete a home studio in less than $1,000? Workflow ideas, how to best optimize your setup, the signal chain of the microphone, lighting, how many lights do you need, where would you put them, how would you prioritize all that? Setup help, camera angles, framing of a shot, what should be in your background, what should not be in your background. Presenting tips, I've already got a few videos on that, a couple different styles of presenting, complete ad-lib, hybrid of outlined version right here, or maybe totally scripted. We'll talk about that in a different video. And overall best practices of how to come across, whether you're recording something, whether you're live streaming on a platform, or whether you're doing some type of interactive conference call with others. So a home studio here in 2023, it's always been valuable, but I think we've especially seen how it can get you several steps ahead. And yes, it is going to cost you in terms of time and effort and space. Right? It's going to cost you those three things in some way, shape, or form. But think about value that it will return for you and provide you, because quite honestly, home studios and content production at home, it's not going anywhere. It's only going to get more impactful down the line. So now's a great time here in 2023 to jump in. Subscribe to the channel, thumbs up on this video if it provided you value. I'll talk to you next time. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. This time around, it is 5 facts about a very common piece of audio hardware. It's the Fed head from Triton Audio. There's actually 2 different flavors of the old Fed head, and that's where we will begin. This is an inline preamp. It boosts your microphone's signal before it gets to an audio interface or processing device, but you should know that there is a regular and a phantom power version variant available of the Fed head. So here is the Fed head, here is the Fed head Phantom. Now, what's the difference here? They both take phantom power. That's how they operate. Like, that is what powers them to amplify the signal. It's just that the Fed head Phantom carries through that current to the microphone if it's a condenser, if it needs to still be phantom powered. Like this one, the normal one, the regular one, perfect for a dynamic microphone which does not need phantom power. But if you needed to boost a condenser's input volume into the mixer or interface or whatever else, you would want the Fed head Phantom. Now, this is a more rare probably need. Most everybody using a dynamic, that's probably the reason that they're using an inline preamp, is because that it is a dynamic and they don't need to pass phantom power. So the regular variant works just fine. But know that there are two, and that right there is the difference when you're boosting a signal, carrying through the phantom power or not. Okay, this, I guess, could have been fact number one. You will get about 27 dB of very clean gain from this Triton Audio Fed head. And it's quite simple. It does the job. It does it every time. There's no buttons or switches or software or firmware. It's just this hardware. It needs phantom power. You put it in line between your mic and whatever it's going into, and it provides you with, yeah, I've measured about 27 dB of clean gain. As clean as it gets, not adding any extra hiss, low noise. This is not going to contribute to any type of problems in your signal chain. End of story. It works reliably. It does what it says it's going to do. I'm also here to say, and I have tried and bought and used the Cloud Lifter before. That's another common device and cloud brand that you will hear of, but I actually prefer these FET heads from Triton Audio for one reason. I mean, they do literally the same thing. They do it both very well at the highest of quality, but it's just design alone is why I prefer this. Think about a microphone that needs to run through an XLR cable into this, and if this were the Cloud Lifter, you'd have to run another XLR out the back into whatever interface or mixer you're plugging into. Instead, with this FET head, you can literally take it into the microphone on one side of the XLR, then the male side here can go into the female side of the FET head, and then this right here can go straight into your mixer, your interface, or whatever. So you can essentially do with the one XLR cable that you needed, that you had, that you brought, that's fine. You don't need a second XLR cable like you do with the Cloud Lifter. The Cloud Lifter, because of its design and shape, it's in a box, it has no way to plug into something else, whereas this FET head does. So again, considering that they literally do a great job at the same thing, they're not separated by much, at least not normally, from a price point. Maybe the FET head costs a little bit more, but yeah, smaller, more versatile. You can put a ton of these in your pocket. Can't do that with the Cloud Lifter. So if I have to show preference one way or the other, slight edge to the FET head because it does that. Okay, why would you want to use an inline preamp, especially if the preamp you already have is probably just barely capable of powering your microphone? For example, the old SM7B, right? Needs a ton of gain. Don't mind that. Needs a ton of gain, you know, close to 60 dB. And for example, like one of these DBX 286S's, they could provide, at the very top end, they can provide about 60 dB. But why would I want to crank one of these all the way up, get all the input volume out of it, when I could add a FET head, right, to give me a little bit of juice, and then that way I don't need to crank the preamp of the DBX 286S. I have found that the higher you get to the top end of a preamp's capability, right, if it says it can give you 60, then somewhere in the 50 to 60 range is where it's going to be the noisiest. That signal noise, that hiss, that signal to noise ratio, it deteriorates a little bit at the very top end. So if you use a FET head, I mean, this is my preference, quite honestly. If I'm using the 7B into the DBX 286S, I will use this FET head into the DBX so it can boost my signal 27 dB and let the DBX do the rest, the other 25, 26, whatever dB that it takes. I'm also here to tell you that even into my Universal Audio Apollo Twin X, and I run that through processing a signal chain with obviously a preamp, but compression at the end. I still, when I connect this mic, the 7B, to the Universal Audio, I still use a Triton FET head in line with that signal chain. So it helps balance out the gain staging so that not one of your devices needs to do all the heaviest lifting. I have found that that produces the best quality audio, best signal, probably. The most reliable signal is to boost it just a little bit here, just a little bit there, if you can, versus all in one push, cranking something to the very max. Next thing here is that this device opens up the door to, how do I put it, less stronger preamps and devices. Not everything can even honestly power the 7B. Not everything is even capable of giving you a true 60 dB of clean gain. Or if it gets to 60, like I said before, it gets messy. Some preamps and interfaces get you to 45, and that's it. That's just not enough to make a reliable recording. It's not enough power. So the thing about this is that the FetHead opens the doors to things like, and I don't mean to be derogatory here, but like a Zoom recorder. A lot of those don't have the most powerful preamps or the cleanest preamps. And so what a FetHead allows you to do is plug into a Zoom recorder and only have to crank that thing maybe 2/3 of the way, maybe halfway. You get a nice clean sound from the Zoom. You only have to put this in line, and you can use your 7B with a Zoom H6, for example. So the FetHead, while costing, around $100, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, it opens the door so that you can plug the mic you want to use into the recorder you want to use. There's virtually not going to be any more gain or input or gain staging problems if you have a FetHead. So there you go. Those are my 5 facts about the Triton Audio FetHead and the FetHead Phantom. I guess it doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter which one you're using, which one you might require. But the regular variant, the normal variant, is probably going to serve most purposes. And yeah, I totally see most people using this on a dynamic microphone, the 7B or the RE20, Rode Pod mic, things like that. The Triton Audio FetHead can definitely help you out. So thanks for being here on my channel, Home Studio Pro. Subscribe if you like this type of content. I've got lots more coming your way. Also, thumbs up on this video if it provided you some value. I'll see you next time. Okay, I've been making videos for a long time, well before YouTube ever existed. By the way, welcome to Home Studio Pro. And I want to pass this along. As you live stream or as you record something, as I'm doing right here and now, monitor your audio. Now, I'm not saying you need to have full-on headphones or cans like these. You can use some in-ear monitors, but whatever you choose to use, whatever you choose to put in your ears, make sure that you're actually listening to what you're recording while you're recording it. I see way too many people who are not doing this. And my analogy here is like this camera. Imagine trusting that the camera shot was just framed up. Now, here in my home studio, the camera, this desk, my seat, it never moves, so I know it is framed up. But imagine me just plopping it down saying, well, looks like it's pointed in this direction. I'll just trust the fact that I can see the lens, it can see me, and yeah, I'm perfectly framed. Like, this shot is exactly how I want it to be. How do I really know that unless I'm looking at it? I'm monitoring the video. So the same goes with audio, because a lot of times, and you're guilty of it, I have been too, we just trust the levels. Recording on our camera, we see the meters move. Oh yeah, it's recording. It hears us fine. Or my mixing desk here, it hears just fine. I see the levels bouncing up and down. Trusting the levels alone is just not good enough anymore. Are you overmodulating? Is there static in your signal? Is there RF interference if you're on a wireless kit? Are there clicks and pops? Is a microphone rubbing against your clothes? Is there some other tapping sound that's really annoying that you can't otherwise hear unless you're listening to your audio as you're recording it? What am I guarding against here? Why am I passing this along? Because I don't want you to redo your videos. I don't want you to feel like you nailed it and you just spent 30 minutes talking to the camera, spilling your heart out about something and really, presenting like you wanted it to. And then you import the clip and it looks good. The video looks fine. And then you listen to it and go, huh? What is that? That sounds terrible. The mic wasn't plugged in or was problems, right? I do not want you to have to redo an entire video. I also, that was an edited scenario. Imagine if you're live streaming. There's no going back and fixing that. Your audience can see you perfectly, but if your audio is terrible, that is the #1 reason why people will tune out. The audio sounds like garbage. People will put up actually with bad video or even video issues, but when they can't hear you properly, that is an instant tune out. So I want to guard against you having a train wreck style live stream. What are we listening for? Like what am I talking about? Why do I wear full headphones here? I'm listening for proper levels. I'm also listening for a proper mix, right? If I do choose to play sound effects here, I want the sound effects to sit just a little bit lower than my voice typically, right? I don't want the music to overwhelm what I'm saying. I want it to sit right under there. So proper levels overall. I don't want to peak or overmodulate or clip, or I don't want to be too low where people are cranking their volume all the way up and still can't hear. Again, RF interference, if I was using a wireless kit, is there scratchiness? Is there somebody else stepping on me? This is a common issue, and especially these days when a lot of the wireless kits are going to the Wi-Fi frequencies of 2.4 gigs, and you just never know if you're actually being recorded properly. It also helps if you're in a podcast situation. I'm talking about all content creation here, not just, me here in the home studio into this microphone. What if I was in a larger setting and three of my friends who are not, regulars at recording and talking into a mic, how do I know that they're staying on mic, right? I want them to be able to be heard as well as I am. So I can only hear this if I'm listening in real time. Because if all of a sudden one of my guests puts the mic over here and starts talking like this, and we weren't paying attention, I didn't notice until now. But now I really noticed that I should have been listening as I was recording. So these are all reasons to monitor your audio. Dead batteries. Again, mostly going back to the wireless side of things, but if you have a power issue and then all of a sudden halfway through your recording, it looked good when you started it, like, oh yeah, levels look fine when I started this video, but they don't persist throughout it. I mean, look, I'm here in the home studio right now on my multi-view screen looking at the levels as I'm recording this, as I can also hear it too. Acoustics are also important. Like if you're recording somewhere for the first time, you go into like a hallway or somewhere cavernous and it's all this kind of sounds like this. Like you'd want to know, right? If this is how the audio is sounding as you were recording it. You probably would stop your video and say, guys, let's bring it in somewhere that sounds more like this, right? You gotta listen to the audio. You cannot just look at the levels. I find, now as we get into some advanced topics here, I find that it gives the performer confidence to hear the audio as you're talking. Think about anybody who works as a radio broadcaster. And even in television, we wear small earpieces. But in radio, there's a reason they're all wearing professional caliber headphones. It's so that you as a performer can have confidence. You can work the mic if you have to. Coming up next on Slow Jams at 9 o'clock, I'll play all your favorite hits. Does anybody listen to Slow Jams late at night anymore? But like, I know, right? I have literal confidence that I'm working the mic properly and correctly. Or if I'm yelling, I know you can still hear me, but it's just not as loud because I've backed off the mic a little bit. Also with effects and EQ, I mean, there's another problem. Let's say I'm here in the home studio and I accidentally, slid this up, or on my elbow hit that. And I started the video, it sounded like this. But by the end of the video, I didn't realize that my elbow hit that, and now the rest of the video is going to have this effect on it. Or just overall the EQ or whatever compression you have on it, you want to know, how is this sounding as I'm actually doing it? I don't understand, honestly, how anybody can perform with any confidence. Like me taking, headset hair, me taking the headphones off right now, I feel terrible. I feel naked. I feel awkward. I know I'm fine because this is the distance I normally, talk from. And I've sat here and done this for thousands of hours. But even right now, it feels weird. And it's not just because I, can't hear myself through my ears. It's because I'm wondering, is everything going okay? I put on the headphones and I know we're back. So monitor your audio. From me to you, save yourself. Do this instantly. Find the technology also that allows you to do this. I understand that if you have a simple YouTube setup or content creation setup, you might just have the microphone that goes into the camera and that's all you've got. Maybe consider using an audio interface, consider using an audio mixer. Those are two things that will let you hear yourself in real time as the way it's being recorded and going into your camera or recording device. So those might be things that you need, that if you don't have them, but if you have the option to do it, monitor your audio. Trust me. After a couple decades, trust me. If this video provided you value, consider giving it a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. Also, subscribe to this channel. I've got lots more great stuff coming out very soon. In this video, 5 facts about a device I've had for 3 years and literally use every single day. In fact, I'm making this very video with the A10 Mini Pro. Mine's the ISO version by Blackmagic Design. This is a tremendous piece of hardware. It's literally the backbone of my home studio. Got it in late 2020, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 months after it initially came out, and instantly realized it's exactly what I wanted. I was considering maybe even going the computer route and using software like OBS to do all my camera switching and graphics and such, but eventually I settled in on the A10 Mini Pro, and it was the right decision. Hardware-based, reliable, does the job, completely silent, right? No computer fan going on there. I have 2 of these. I bought a second one for my remote streaming kit. That's how much I believe in this ecosystem. And that's how perfect I think Blackmagic Design got it. What is the A10 Mini Pro, by the way? It's a video switcher. It's got the ability to do so much more, even mix audio, compression, EQ on channels. You can record with it, plug a hard drive into the back. It's recording this video right now, but I could live stream it. I could hook this up to a computer USB-C style and use it as a webcam input, so I could send all of this through a Zoom call. It is so flexible, so versatile. There's a software side of it too. Again, like they just hit every box. They checked every box Blackmagic Design did when they came out with this. So I use this a ton. I know it inside and out. I want to share these 5 facts about it. Maybe you've got one, or maybe you're considering the purchase. But let me just say this. Above anything else, this product could not have come out and hit the market at a better time than early 2020 when it did. Obviously, that year, because of the world health crisis, that so many people started broadcasting from home. So many people needed a video switcher just like this, something to, again, be that backbone of their home studio. Nothing like this ever existed. People talked about it. People used bigger versions of this. I mean, like products that cost 10 times as much as this. They way overdid it. There was nothing like with professional features at more of a consumer price. There was nothing like this on the market. So these have sold well. There's the mini version, the mini Pro version, the mini ISO version. There's the Pro Extreme. Now there's HDMI versions and SDI versions. So they've really expanded on something that's done so well. There's a bunch of different flavors of this product. But again, Blackmagic Design could not have had this hit the market at a better time. It just came out in early 2020. Who knew by the end of the year I would have one, and months after that I would own 2 of them. A lot of people own these right now. Here's fact number 2, which I think is so critical. HDMI inputs and signal conversion by this device, they are very underrated. Now, what I mean by that is the fact that with HDMI inputs like I have here on the back, there are so many different types of devices that you can plug in to this switcher. Your typical DSLR, or for example, the GoPro camera, or as I show it here on the screen, like that's my computer's input. That's my Mac computer's input making this keynote presentation. And there's 4 channels of input here video-wise, but the fact that it uses HDMI for me and my ecosystem is perfect. There's also the SDI version, which may be right for you, depending on what equipment you have. But signal conversion, that's the part I really want to get into here, right? There's a bunch of different types of video signals. 1080, 720. Now, this doesn't do 4K. I want to be clear about that, but different frame rates. 60 frames a second, 59.9 and 30 and 29.97, 24, 25, 50. There's all these different frame rates. This hardware will convert anything you put into it, and it'll put out exactly what you specify in one unified fashion. So you can plug in 4 different types of HDMI video signals and request the one type out. It'll convert everything in and out and take care of it for you. There's nothing to worry about. I mean, think of the value of that alone. Some people pay a couple $100 per every channel of converting the HDMI signal into what they need. This product literally does all of that for you in stride and mixes it and does transitions and overlays and all that stuff. So Very important to know that signal conversion, nobody talks about it because they just take it for granted. But the fact that this device does it is absolutely huge. Everything is compatible with this, essentially. Okay, here's another thing you need to know. The software buttons for this switcher and the macros you can create through the software are far more valuable, far more useful than the actual tactile buttons here on the switcher. I rarely ever touch buttons on the switcher. Literally. Like I hit start and stop on the record. I could use the Stream Deck and a hotkey for that. I choose to use record on off and stream on off. And maybe I can switch around the multi-view over here. But pretty much everything I do is using the Stream Deck, which is attached through BitFocus Companion to the macro software side of this. I don't actually manipulate much of the switcher with the physical hardware buttons. I found that these are a bit clumsy, tedious, too small. They're quality. They push fine. Like there's no response issue, but it's not. This part is not of a maybe professional level and what you might be used to if you're actually using a real TV switcher at a network studio or a production truck. So I have found that the software buttons that I use, either on the screen or like again with the Stream Deck here, these are way more useful in getting the most out of the ATEM or getting it to do what I want it to do versus using the buttons on the actual hardware itself. Too bad they could customize those. They don't. Okay, the multi-view is a luxury for your home studio setup. And look, there you can see it right there. So this is my switcher, but what's on this screen right here, no, not this one. This is just the keynote presentation, but right up here is the multi-view that the ATEM is producing with audio levels, with all of my inputs to let me know that I've been recording for 7 minutes and change. The audio levels entirely on the bottom right. If I'm streaming, it's got a data rate there. So everything I need to see all in one place. And the fact that, again, that's just another thing that this device does. It doesn't have a tiny screen on it where I can't read it. It literally puts out a multi-view that I would get at the TV network where I work. It is of that quality and caliber. It is a luxury for a home studio setup to know that I can look at a multi-view that this thing is producing. So that is something that exceeds expectations. It was one of the early things I realized I loved about this when I first got it. Okay, and this is getting close to the end of the list here, but this is so important. This device is noise-free. That's right. It does have a fan, but it does not make noise. And I told you earlier I was considering going the computer route, the PC route, putting OBS on something, but computers have fans, and especially computers that are handling multiple HDMI signals and graphics cards, and yeah, they get hot and they need a way to cool down. This ATEM right here, it's never really got that hot. And the only time the fan ever comes on is when you start it up after doing a firmware update. I think that's just procedural. Fan never comes on. And in this recording space, I've done so much here to try and keep it acoustically treated. Although I hear a truck outside right now. But I've done so much to try and keep the noise completely silent in this home studio. The last thing I want is a computer that makes noise 2 feet away from the microphone. That would be terrible. But the ATEM makes no noise. And that's why it's perfect for a home studio setup. In an office, yeah, you could have a central equipment room. You could put that, down the hall and you could shut the door on it. You can air condition that, fine. But here in a home studio, it's likely that every piece of hardware you're using is in the same room as you. So it needs to be silent. This is. There you go. 5 facts of the ATEM Mini Pro. I love this thing. I really do. It was a game changer for my home studio. The fact that I can live stream from it right from the Ethernet cord that goes out the back. I mean, literally connect it right to YouTube, stream flawlessly. I can record on the hard drive that goes out the back. I can send it USB-C to the computer for a Zoom call. So flexible, so versatile. This has truly been a game changer, and I would buy it all over again in a heartbeat. if I went back in time. So let me know what you think about this video in the comments section below. Subscribe to this channel for more content just like this. And thumbs up on this video if it provided you some value. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro, and in this video, I want to clarify something. It's a mistake that I often hear people make. They're talking about one thing, but they mean the other, or vice versa. These two things are related, but they are definitely different. What is soundproofing versus what is sound treatment for your recording space? Now, in just a second, I'll show you here inside my own recording space how I get it to sound a little bit better than the typical bedroom, so to speak. But what you're looking at right there is a recording booth for voiceover. It's custom built. It's fabricated intentionally to lessen any type of reverberations inside that room so that the microphone is only hearing your voice into the mic and not your voice reflected off of the walls back into the microphone, which kind of gives that echoey sound that nobody wants. So this is very important. As much as we can talk about microphones and signal chains and processing and settings, one of the most important parts of any recording is the actual space itself, the mechanical space, like the room itself. Not all the equipment, not all the bells and whistles, like literally the room itself. Some people will spend $1,000 on a microphone, $3,000 on a microphone, and $0 on treating their room. That's a mistake. I mean, you can do it. People do it all the time, but you're not going to get the best value out of your microphone as possible unless you also complement it with the room. Space is more influential on your sound, like the space you're in, more than any processing you could do to this microphone. I'm convinced of that. EQ, compression, expansion, gating, low cut, high cut, yeah, those things are all important, but the space is the foundation of how your microphone and your recording is going to sound. But these are two different things when we talk about soundproofing versus sound treating. Soundproofing is eliminating noise from the outside of my room, which quite honestly in this little space here is impossible. This is a typical home structure, right? The walls are only so thick. There's windows. I've got neighbors. They make noise. There's leaf blowers. There's airplanes, helicopters, the garbage truck. I'm trying to think of everything that makes me stop a video. And it's frustrating, right? So you can soundproof your room, but it's difficult and it's expensive. It's a construction project. We'll get into that. Most people, what they're talking about is treating your room. And that's eliminating echoes from the inside of your space. So again, proofing is to try and not let sound inside your room. Treating is to try and make the sound that's bouncing around inside your room stop doing that to get the optimal sound as part of your recording. So just soak that in for a second. Soundproofing and sound treating are two different things because oftentimes you'll hear them interchanged, but they definitely do not mean the same thing. Soundproofing is a construction project. How do you go about this? How do you eliminate big noises from the outside of your structure? Well, you kind of have to build a floated room. That's like a room within a room. I wish I had a good diagram of this, but think about your typical bedroom. And if you just started framing up another wall inside of that, and then there's an air gap between the outside shell and the inside shell. Yeah, this is exactly how people float a room. Search for it. It'll make sense if you don't understand what I'm saying. But this eliminates variables from the outside. And some of the top voiceover professionals across the country, and obviously music studios, they do this. They invest in construction. It's costly. It's very involved. It requires, a contractor usually, and an architect, and an electrician. I mean, this is a heavy scale thing. But if you can float a room inside a room, you can pretty much use that recording space no matter what is happening on the outside. But this is not really viable for most people, including you and I. I don't have a soundproof space, so what do? Well, if noise on the outside is too much, like for example, literally today, there's a neighbor getting a new roof put on their house. I know tomorrow I'm going to hear pop, pop, pop of the nail gun when they're putting that new roof on. So I'm probably not making any videos or live streaming tomorrow. This room is not soundproof. Unfortunately, I wish it were. But I will tell you, this room is very sound treated. I'm dampening the sound. Again, and I don't have a good way to simulate this other than to give you like a little bit of echo. Now, this is simulating what it would be like if I were talking in a loud, cavernous, spacious room. And this room is, I don't know, it's small. It's 10 by 12, maybe 8 by 10, something like that. But I've sound treated the inside of it, and I'm going to show it to you in just a second. Actually, do you want to see it right now? I think we can do this. Yeah, look, there it is. See? And here's proof. There's me waving. There I am. This is what the inside of my room looks like. There's the camera on the left that's shooting me right here. But I've built those panels. Also, I've put up some moving blankets to insulate the inside of the room and the walls. There's just typical drywall right behind there, painted drywall. I mean, it's a typical home construction environment here inside this room. But those panels, and I think they're about 18 inches wide by about 5 feet high. I built those a couple years ago. They're stuffed with rock wool insulation on the inside. I should make a different video on how I built them, but just understand that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these in the room, and they're spaced out accordingly, and they're here to help me dampen the sound so that when I yell really loud, it doesn't sound like this. That was a pretty good example, actually. And yes, I'm cheating with the mixer, but you understand my point. That's what I'm trying to accomplish with those sound panels, is to deaden the sound in this room. Now, this doesn't have to be a huge expense to deaden the sound. I mean, literally, I just showed you this. I made all this stuff with materials from Home Depot and a Joann Fabric store. I mean, this is literally not hard to come by and to put together. You don't have to spend a lot to treat your room. To isolate your room, yeah, you're instantly in the thousands of dollars. But to treat your room, my goodness, you could probably spend, I'm not even kidding. First off, you probably already have things. A mattress, a blanket, a comforter, something you're not using or you're not using right now. And you can use all these things to help treat your room. But even if you need to go out and buy it, I bet you $100 in a bedroom of fabric and well-placed and hung and all this stuff, it would do more than a $900 Universal Audio Apollo system in terms of making your microphone and your room sound better. You can get a lot done for about $100 in sound treating your room. Now, I do understand that if you have moving blankets up around, now see, look, behind me, you would never know, right? With this setup, you would honestly never know that the rest of the studio kind of looks like that, right? It's kind of a stark comparison. Yeah, all the lights and bells and whistles, this is this is the fancy side, and then this is the business end of the room, quite honestly. So it does give you a different perspective on what you need to do to the rest of your room to get it to sound right, in addition to making it look right. So it can detract, maybe if moving blankets are up or something ugly in your background. But quite honestly, if I were using this space for only recording audio, I wouldn't even have all of this. I would honestly have more of this. I would make it look more like that space. Panels that I've put in there, I love them. They're great. I think that's the best option. Those are, by the way, wood framed, covered with fabric. Like I said, insulation on the inside. There's even a layer of landscape paper to make sure all that insulation stays in there. So it's very secure. And think about those panels as kind of like, somebody said like a catcher's mitt. Like these panels are up there to absorb the sound, dampening it. Honestly, that's the best way to put it. They are there to dampen the sound. But I do want to address foam. And I say here, foam is useless. It kind of is, and we'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, this is the goal, to minimize the sound from your voice that's going to hit the wall and reflect back into the microphone. Now, I showed you these panels. They do a pretty good job of that. That's different than foam. How much do you think, thin foam like that actually is going to catch your voice, catch that sound, and not let it reflect back? It's pretty thin, right? I mean, what if I held the foam around my ears? Would I still hear sound? Of course I would. It would be loud and clear. Foam would not really do much if I covered each of my ears with foam, because it's not really catching it or absorbing it. It's letting it pass right through. It's hitting the wall just like it used to, and it's bouncing right back just like it used to if it weren't even there. Foam works on maybe some higher frequencies, but not on the lower frequencies. If you have foam and you like it, more power to you. I'm just here to say that I did a lot of research on this, and foam deteriorates over time. It creates little fuzzy particles. You breathe those in. There's a lot left to be desired, I think, with foam. And a lot of people go on Amazon. They see it's cheap. They see it's a way to treat your room. And I see this in the background of other places. It's not necessarily the route you want to go. And I apologize if you have it and you're watching this and saying, uh-oh, I need to make a change. But ultimately, I'm here to help you get better with this stuff. So foam as a failure, yeah, if you're starting right now and you're doing something new, I would not put it in. Simple as that. So yeah, here's what my space looks like. I'll just show it to you one more time. I think it's important to let you know that, to truly get the right sound, like you actually need to do so much treatment of your room, more so than just, getting the right mic and getting the processing right. It is all about sound treating your room, and also understanding the difference of soundproofing versus sound treating. Ultimately, your room is soundproofed from the outside and sound treated on the inside, but that's only if you're very lucky and you've put a lot into your recording space. Hey, that does it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thumbs up if it provided you some value. Also subscribe to this channel. I've got lots more great stuff coming out here on Home Studio Pro. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. This time around, we're here to discuss best practices when it comes to backgrounds of your videos. Now, look, here's my background. This is what my home studio looks like. I think we need to establish that what you say is important. How you sound, like as a presenter, but also audio-wise, how the video sounds, all of that is tremendously important. But let's be honest, all of the background behind you is something your viewers are going to be noticing, and they're going to be attaching and interpreting as part of whatever you present in your videos. So backgrounds are critical. Don't think that they're not, but the question is, what goes into making a best background? Here are some best practices, I would say, for a home studio background. Number one is that you want it to be attractive, but not distracting. Not too busy, not something that's going to catch eyeballs. You want to be the center of focus as the presenter or whoever your subjects are and what they're saying. You want that to be the primary focal point of the production, right? You don't want the background to be too distracting. But how do you make it attractive but also not distracting? There's a bunch of things that go into this, and we'll look at some real-life examples in just a second. But just know, it can't be ugly, but it can't be too much. Fine line between that. Proportionately well lit as related to the subject. And I guess what I'm saying is too dark, like if this were an all black background behind me, it might be too much of a contrast. Conversely, if it were too bright behind me, if I was entirely backlit, I would look like I'm in witness protection. So you want it proportionately lit to the subject. If it's all dark and it's all kind of a darker theme, okay, no problem. It's proportionate. If we're all a little bit brighter than normal, that's fine too, to a certain extent, but it's all in proportion. And last but not least, generally you want things behind you to be a little bit out of focus. That kind of makes the subject pop. You don't want your subject to blend into the background. And a big part of that is focal length. How much length do I have on the lens? How far away can the camera get? The farther away, the better, actually, in terms of focal length and depth you're creating. You'll notice here in the home studio, my back is not up against the wall behind me. First off, it's the corner shape of a wall, so it gives me a little bit more additional depth. But even if this were just a flat wall behind me, it's not 6 inches behind my back. You have to create some depth between your subject and the ultimate background. Okay, so with that established, let's also understand one more thing. I totally respect that Not everybody has a big space. Some people are operating in a small space. I'm also here to tell you that nothing in front of you, like what I'm seeing this way, doesn't really matter. So do whatever you have to do over here to make sure that behind you, what the people are seeing is ultimately taken care of. Before we get into some of these examples, here are some things to avoid. Large, cavernous, echoey spaces. If there's too much background behind me, and if the shot is, we're not even talking about shot framing. Obviously, that's an important part of it too. How you frame the shot, what you capture in the background. Is it a ton of background? Is it a narrow background? But you want to avoid large, cavernous, echoey spaces for acoustical reasons, number one. I already talked about backlighting. If the sun is setting right behind you, or there's a bright window right behind you with no coverings on it, yeah, that's not generally going to turn out well. I would please also urge you, starting 2023 and beyond, I don't really need to see your unmade bed or your kitchen sink, your dirty dishes behind you, etc. I understand that people are broadcasting from home. We get that. That's what we're here to do, help you through part of that process. But do your best to not have some of these personal things and sensitive information in the background. A lot of people broadcast from their home office. Well, they also do their bills there, their taxes there, credit card info, phone numbers, post-it notes in the background that have, sensitive information, an IP address, an email login. Like, literally think about, what are people seeing in my background? When I set this place up, I did it over time. I would move a light. I would alter this. I'd move the camera. I'd go back and forth. This is a tedious process to get your background right. But sometimes just look at it. I'm looking at the monitor right now. Is there too much of a hair light on this side? Maybe I'll change that later. Is the camera level? Is the background level? Are there things that are straight or crooked in the background? Is it's a real tree. It's a fake tree, right? But does the tree need to be repositioned? Just sit here and look at it for a second. Don't rush. Look at your background right now. What could I do to change this if I needed to, right? Make changes. This is a long game project. Just understand that. But your background is very important. Okay, let's get into some examples here. By the way, I've taken all these screenshots from a panel discussion and live stream that takes place 7 days a week. This is from Office Hours Global. Check them out here on YouTube. They do a great production in terms of virtual production. They talk about that, live streaming technology every day. They have very educated and capable panelists here who also, they do pretty good in their home studio shots. Here's one of them. Obviously, it's the holidays right now, the Christmas lights. I think sometimes there's a fire brewing even on the right side of this screen here too, over his left shoulder. That's great. I mean, it's got some cool lighting. It's got a darker background, but enough to understand exactly what's going on there. The all blue theme. I don't know if he coordinated that with what he was wearing that day, but it's out of focus. The subject pops. I mean, that is attractive in a background to look at, but it's not distracting. I give that one a pretty high grade. Here's Alex. He is the creator of Office Hours. Look at his background. That's awesome. It's busy, but it's not distracting. Nothing's back there moving. And it's attractive. I'm like kind of like, what is that over there? But I'm not so overwhelmed in it that I'm not paying attention to what he's saying. There's some good depth. Obviously, he's got a hair light on there too, which helps separate him from the background. It doesn't look like he's literally sitting with those shelves, 2 inches behind him. So there's some space, a little bit of light being captured as part of that background. It's good. It's really good. Here's one that uses a little bit more color. Now, as you can tell, I'm a person who I use color here too. But, very, very purple on one side, very blue on the other. Specifically placed, what is that, a curtain behind his head? I mean, obviously that does well. It cuts out the corner, maybe some of the busyness. It helps his head pop out. And maybe you could say that if that curtain were there and it were a brighter color, it would help his head pop out from the background even more. You can't really see the definition. Good hair light, by the way. You can see the light kind of like what I have here on top of his head and hair. But, maybe that you could have the head pop out even more than it does here. But again, I don't mean to criticize, just saying, as you look at this, here are some things to consider. The shelving unit in the background of this one. Again, does that bother some people that some shelves are open? He was probably doing work or doing something right before this happens. So the more things you can minimize in terms of the background that are personal or sensitive, or they're your bed or your kitchen, probably the better. But this looks, just like a typical bedroom, but there's some uplighting in the back, nice cool blue color, all the color temperatures, for his skin tone and everything else. Everything is white balanced properly. So it just goes to show you this doesn't need to be the fanciest thing in the world. A couple uplights there in the background, and you've got yourself, something attractive to look at here. This background, and I'm not even sure what that is behind this gentleman, whether that's an acoustic panel, a sound panel, but simple, right? Blue color, not a distracting pattern. It is something to look at, and it does help pop a little bit, but this is not totally overwhelming. It's basic, right? A lot of people could do just a solid color in the background, but this gives you a little bit of depth and reality. Here's his home studio, and it's got obviously the broadcast console on the far left of the screen. I think the same mic I'm using here, the U87, over his right shoulder there. This background for me, I like it. I would like to actually see a little bit more of it though. I'd like some more lighting. Remember I said that you want your subject proportionately lit. I mean, he is very well lit on camera, face popping out, no problem, but maybe some more complementary lighting on the stuff in the background so it's not so mysterious. I find myself getting a little bit lost in wondering, like, what's over there? What am I, if there was some more light on the subject, it might make the screen one more solid piece instead of saying, okay, here's the foreground, here's the background. Again, more lighting in the background, I would say, to brighten up this image or this still frame. But again, it's not bad to begin with. Just offering some advice here. Just trying to give you an idea of how you could give yourself a really good background. So here is one that has more lighting on the background. See, this is more of that proportionate mix. The subject is lit well. The background is lit well. You even see some angled slash lighting up there on those curtains. Is that called a banker's light? The little, where is it? Green guy right here. That's cool. The old Macintosh computer. I mean, how cool is that, right? It's kind of a centerpiece. It's something to look at, but it's not on. It's not making noise or visuals. It's not distracting by any means, but it just lives there in the background. I think that is very cool. Also, something to consider here, the angle of your shot, right? Is the background, like you can see the ground here because the camera on this person is so high shooting down. Now, maybe you want that. Maybe you don't want that. Right? Maybe if this camera were positioned lower, right? Just imagine if we moved it, you would see none of that ground. Maybe you would see more of the background. Bookcases, bookshelves, very popular. You can light those up differently, but there is good depth here. His head pops out. Again, I just wanted to use this example to show you that a higher vantage point on your camera is going to have, the image looking down on you, and you will see the ground. Like imagine here, there's no floor you could see here, but if the camera were up there, you might see some floor behind me. Okay, we talked about blurry backgrounds, bokeh, as it's known in the DSLR world, the mirrorless camera world. This is a lot of bokeh. This is, I would guess, an aperture setting of like 1.2. I mean, look how blurry the background is. This person's nose is in focus, their ears are out of focus, and there's like an inch or two difference. Obviously, it's a good camera. It's got a good autofocus. It's razor sharp on his eyes and his glasses and nose and face. So the camera is in focus where it's supposed to be, but I caution you a little bit to going overboard on blurring the background. That's almost too blurry. I would do this if you had no other choice. You really didn't want people to see what was behind you. This is fine. It's a good method. There's nothing wrong with this. And, for a lot of people, this is what they're aiming for. But that background right there leaves it feeling a little bit overwhelming and unnatural, maybe for a long period of time. If you were going to watch me here in this home studio for a long period of time and my background were that blurry, it might be a little much. So something to consider. And here's the opposite of that. Here's somebody sitting in front of an LED screen. So they actually want you to see what LCD? What am I saying? It's a TV monitor behind this person right here. So they want you to see the background. They want you to see what it is. Now, this one has the capability of motion, of animating, of changing, right? So that's another thing to consider. Would you actually put a flat screen behind you as your background? And if you could frame everything else out, right, the edges of the screen out, if you could You can adjust it so that you can change your background. You could be anywhere you want. You don't have to green screen. You're obviously going to have to turn the brightness way down on any television for it to be behind you. But look at the setting here. I mean, that's pretty slick if you can swing it. So that's definitely another option as a background for the home studio. Okay, backgrounds are important. I use some examples. Shout out to Office Hours Global, by the way. Check them out here on YouTube. They have hundreds of people that join their show as panelists. They all have tremendous backgrounds. I wanted to show you there some of what I consider the best. Hopefully this video provided you value. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Also, hey, subscribe to this channel. I've got lots more great stuff coming your way. Don't forget, what you say is important, how you sound is extremely important, but your background cannot be forgotten. It cannot be a low priority. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. Really appreciate you for being here, and thank you so much for supporting this channel. I'm kind of doing this video as a request. A bunch of you have been asking for this, to do a comparison between the Rodecaster Pro 2 and the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X. I own both of these products. I love both of these products. They're similar enough to put here in this same conversation and comparison for a video. But they're very different in a sense that if you ask me which one would be better overall for you to purchase, I can't really give you one answer unless I know what you're intending to do most in using these devices. Does that make sense? Like, really what you want to get out of each of these devices is how I'm going to figure out which one of them is best for you. Can I say that I highly recommend and endorse both of these greatly? And for the price point, which is similar, the Apollo Twin X is a little bit more costly. And also when you include some of the plugins that you're most likely going to buy, yeah, the price on the Apollo goes pretty steep pretty quickly. But the Rodecaster Pro 2 is not cheap by any means either, but here's the deal. You're getting what you're paying for in either one of these. And I'm here to say, you could make either one of these work. You cannot make a wrong choice between either of these right now, but I'm going to separate them based on how you'd use them. For podcasting, if that's what you're doing and that's your main emphasis, got to go with the Rodecaster Pro 2. Because of the physical faders, because of the 4 headphone outputs, you can have guests, the sound pads, you can mute people, you've got levels right on a screen, individually channel by channel. You can record right on this device. You don't even need a computer, which is crazy to say in 2023 and beyond, but you don't need to attach this to anything. You could bring literally this, couple XLR cables, headphones, and microphones, and as long as you had a power source, you could go record a podcast out in the woods and do it really, really well. Processing for all channels, you're going to get a unique and robust sound. You're going to get something that doesn't just sound flat and boring. You can make it sound great on a Rodecaster Pro 2. And have I mentioned that I love the preamps on this RCP2? They are so strong. They power an RE20 or an SM7B with no problem. Don't quote me, but is it like 70 dB of gain? So for podcasting, easy answer, Rodecaster Pro 2 is for you. If you're into voiceover, I would go with the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X. Because of the versatility and because of all the different plugins you can use. And honestly, you can create something with software that if you're really deep into the voiceover game, you can create something with software that you might actually be using, like a signal chain you might actually be using in somebody's professional studio. You want an LA2A? You got it. You want an 1176? You got it. You want an SSL 4000 E-channel strip? You got it. You want something from API? No problem. The options, the abilities, and I'm going to say this too. I think the components that are part of the build in the Apollo Twin X, like the actual hardware, I think it's top notch. I'm not saying the Rodecaster Pro 2 is not professional grade. I think it is. It definitely is. But I think there's a certain level of elite quality that this Apollo has been built with. And I do think if you're really searching for, and it's just one person, one microphone, one recording, if you're searching for like pristine sound and you're not trying to record a podcast, then I think the Apollo Twin X is for you. And maybe I said voiceover, it could do voice acting, anything along those lines. And I guess we'll probably get into music later, but for voiceover, the Apollo Twin X. For live streaming, and this is counterintuitive because here in the home studio, like literally right there, where I live stream is an Apollo Twin X. And the Rodecaster Pro 2 here is not in my home studio. I use it for my remote applications. It's in a Pelican case right now. It's ready to go for my next live remote stream. If I probably redesigned all this over again, I might throw the Rodecaster Pro 2 here in the studio, in the home studio. I like my Soundcraft mixing desk, but I think the RCP2 could do an admirable job too. For live streaming, for me, and it doesn't matter if you're streaming through like an A10 Mini Pro ISO, as I am here, through hardware, or maybe you're streaming through software like OBS. This is so able to be connected to your computer or streaming device. It's so flexible. It's got all the options, and there's no latency to anything. I said before, it's great for podcasting. It is great for live streaming too. You can bring in guests. You can assign all of those different faders to different channels. It's actually able to plug into 2 different computers. This can actually be 2 separate audio interfaces, and one of them, audio interface number 1, has 2 channels, meaning that you could bring in sound effects on one slider. You could bring in your guests via Zoom or Discord or whatever else on a totally different slider, have complete control. And that, I think, the control aspect, again, with the sound pads and all that, that is why the Rodecaster Pro 2 is by far the choice for live streaming. But that being said, here I am using an Apollo Twin X, software-based a lot of times for streaming, and it's probably a little bit more cumbersome. So again, if I could redo all this again and for different purposes, I would have both. Okay, streaming and broadcasting, not that different these days anymore, so I really don't need to elaborate much more here, but it is easy to say. And I've done enough radio and production and live broadcasting in my life to understand that you could literally plug in all of your sources that you would need to do a live show of any type, small show, obviously. 4 microphone inputs here, a couple other ways to get sound in via Bluetooth and USB, but you could literally pull off a small live broadcast, definitely like a remote radio broadcast on a Rodecaster Pro 2. Pretty impressive for the $700-something mark right now. And you could do it at the quality that a radio station and broadcast would demand. I think it's super impressive what this thing is capable of. The inputs, the outputs, all of the options. Live broadcasting, live streaming definitely goes to the Rodecaster Pro 2. For music applications, and again, this is more the choice of plugins and the versatility of effects. And I mean, like on the Apollo Twin X, you can do auto-tune. And the plugins will change over time. Now, the plugins also cost an extraordinary amount of money, but generally speaking, like I've found that they are very much worth it. You get what you pay for with the Apollo Twin X. A little bit more, but a little bit more overall quality. And if you want the versatility of music creation and you want to put a distressor on there, you want to anything that you can dream of in music production can basically be found as a plugin in the UAD library. And I'm not a music person by nature. I love it. I appreciate it. I understand a little bit of it. I'm getting to know more of it. But I can clearly see that if you had a Rodecaster Pro 2, you'd be fine and you'd figure it out. You'd make it work. But if you really wanted to take it to the top levels, because a lot of actual major recording artists use a UAD Apollo, like they throw it in their backpack, they bring it to the studio, they bring it on the road. You can create amazing music with this and a DAW, and you put it together, and the hardware and software combination are just incredible. So For music production, no question, the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X. Also, and this might be the last one, if you're simply using this as an interface and nothing more, you just want things to sound good. It's kind of a toss-up, I gotta say, because like the RCP, it has two interfaces in it. How could you not like that? How could you not appreciate that versatility? But it takes up more space. It's a little bit overkill. If you're just looking for an interface for your computer to monitor sound, to maybe power speakers with this, it's got that one big dial knob on the front, easy, volume up, volume down, turn the monitor on, off, dim it, headphone volume, all of that is so simple right in front of you. And like I said before, I do think the overall quality of components and design and build of the Apollo, yeah, just a little bit better than the Rodecaster. And it's not just because the Rode is made of plastic and this is all metal, but there is something to the UAD which sets it a little bit above in terms of if you just wanted one of the best interfaces out there that you could get, yeah, then I would go with the Apollo Twin X. But back to this, and I'm so glad people wanted to know about both because I've owned both. I've had the Apollo now for multiple years, and I've had the Rodecaster Pro 2 for at least several months. I've used them in and out. I understand them quite well. And like I said, when it comes down to it, if you're panicking about this decision, don't. You are going to be so thrilled and satisfied with either one of these. But hopefully me explaining the use cases and what's best for you, hopefully that settles some things or at least helps you understand them better. Let me know what you think about this video. I'd love to hear about it, your thoughts, your comments down below, and subscribe to this channel. I would really appreciate it so that I can definitely see you back here next time. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. In this video, I'm going to spell out how to read a script, which sounds simple, right? Just read it. The words are right there. Read it aloud. You'll be fine. But there is so much more to it when you're actually presenting and delivering a piece of copy. But we need to establish a couple things about this script before you actually perform it, like the origin of the script. Is it coming from a book? Is it coming from somebody who wrote it for you? Did you write it for yourself? Was it originally intended to be read, like with your eyes and not spoken aloud? There's a lot of things we need to know about these words so we can properly deliver them. There's also the wonder of like, what's the intended result here? Where is this going? What's the tone? What's the theme? Where's this going to play? What's the context of how people will hear this or maybe even see this? By the way, that's my next point. Are you going to be on or off camera while you're doing this? For example, if I were reading some type of script right now, I'm on camera, so I don't have the ability to edit my words, chop them up, use the best parts. Otherwise, you'll see cuts in the video. I also might be distracted if I'm looking down the entire time while reading this script. You'd also want to know, is there music to be added onto my script that I'm reading? Like, will there be background music? If so, you may want to preview it. If possible, you may want to at least understand what is the tone of this music. Nothing like doing the old Sunday, 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 and then it's like classical music behind you, right? So there is all that to consider. And then ultimately the delivery of this, the medium, like I said, is this for a podcast? Is this for radio? Is this for television? It's for broadcast? Is it for an e-learning video, corporate production? Where is this going so you have a better idea how to deliver it? And I'm not saying that you need to fall into a preset mold or something that's premeditated. You can be creative, do it how you want, but just understand at least the context of where in the heck is this voiceover going, this script that you'll be reading. So the origin of the script, again, just to kind of detail in and key in on this, some things that people write, they were meant to be read. Like they read differently with commas and pauses and words structured and sentences structured. For example, when I write a script for myself, I use a lot of sentences with ... I think I might be doing this video ... to help someone like you in their home studio, instead of commas everywhere and pauses that are different if I'm actually reading it. You might also want to know this, as I am given a script from somebody else, if they wrote it, does this need to be verbatim? Do I have the authority to make even the slightest of changes? Like sometimes a script will say can't. Well, would I prefer to say cannot? Is that okay? You need to understand if changes are able to be made, and I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you don't either, but it's up to you to find out. And then the delivery. Is this supposed to be sounding like somebody's reading an audiobook? Like literally, should it be word for word and very smooth and precise like that? Or should it be conversational with, see what I'm doing? Some of those pauses and natural intonations that we all use. So understand all of those things about the origin of the script. The intended result, the energy, the pace, the tone, the pauses, it all factors into perception. So really, let's get a clear grasp of where is this going? What is this for? And I had previously mentioned you'd want to hear like what music might be attached to your read, because a lot of times you're not going to hear the music as you're recording your voice or read the script. Will there be any visuals that you need to know about? For example, a lot of times if there's an animation that's going along with it, you would say something like, as you can see here, and you would really kind of call attention to the visual that you know will be seen as you're saying it. You just need a clear understanding of how the end product is going to look, but most importantly, how you can help make it sound. On or off camera, like being seen will definitely change your performance. Now, I'm a television broadcaster. This camera being here doesn't bother me at all right now. In fact, I feel more natural with this camera recording me. But for some people, they'd rather just slide off the screen. They would rather not be on camera. They'd rather do their thing, or they feel weird if somebody's watching me while I'm reading this and I don't like the faces I make. But it's definitely going to change your performance knowing a camera is there or not. Also, if you are doing this like on camera and you're presented a script, well, what if there's a teleprompter available? Should you use it? Are you comfortable doing that? Have you ever done it before? It's something to consider. Teleprompter, by the way, usually a piece of two-sided glass. Is it two-sided mirror? Is that what it's technically called? But it's a reflection from the camera so I can read the script that a screen is playing the words on. You know what a prompter is. But is that an option? Because a lot of times if I'm subject to reading and being on camera and I'm supposed to be addressing an audience, that's going to be very difficult for somebody for the very first time. I would also recommend sometimes on a shorter script with bigger fonts, you could even tape a piece of paper to the bottom of the lens. You can't see right now, but I'm looking below the camera. I'm looking below the lens. I could be reading off paper right below it without any problem. So there are some tricks, but you need to know if you're on camera, how is this going to go as you read your script? Because you can't really start and stop unless you understand that the video is going to get edited too, and it's going to look very disjointed, which here on YouTube, maybe for some people, that doesn't matter because I see those cuts, those hard cuts all the time. Okay, music and tone. You must know what type of visuals and what type of audio is going to accompany your track before you record it. You want to go in with that theme. If I know it's going to be smooth jazz, I might want to take my voice here. Or if it's going to be something fun and exciting, I might want to do this with my voice. So you understand, like the delivery from the very beginning has to match a certain tone that I already know is going to be there. You really do, over time and experience, you learn how to complement tracks with your own voice, right? I know the type of track that's going to be, or the effects, the sound effects, or the natural sound. What if we were doing a nature video? I don't think I want to be very excitable on a nature video. Here comes the bear that's about to sneak up on the owl or whatever. Does that ever happen? You understand how you play your voice into everything else that's about to happen. Okay, how about the delivery and the medium? I failed to mention this before, but it's very important. Are there any time constraints? Will they be editing this? If I've been given the copy for a 30-second script and I take my time with it and read it at about this pace, it's probably going to end up being about a minute long. So that's impossible to edit. You've got to be close on your pace, maybe for time constraints. You might want to know that. Again, the medium, ultimately a promo, an audiobook, a training video. Are you supposed to be a character? Are you doing a voice? Are you just yourself as you read this script? You definitely want to know that too. The platform, is it for social? Is it for broadcast or digital? And does it fit? Like, what you're doing, does it fit ultimately what somebody is hoping to get out of it? So you do need a little bit of direction. Direction is important. Sometimes, and it happens a lot these days more than others, you are your own director. Only you know, only you, as you record this, are going to give yourself feedback. Back in the day, there might have been 5 other people listening as you recorded this to say, no, give it a little bit more oomph, give it a little bit less this. I still get direction to this day when we record promos for our television network, but not all the time. That's a very rare instance in this day and age. So direction helps. Does it fit the end product? Okay, I've got some sample scripts here. I copied and pasted these, and I forget exactly what they were, so give me a second to read this over. Let's figure out like the tone. Let's go through this together. How would I read this in real life? Because I'm about to read it. Come experience the excitement at Saratoga Gaming and Raceway, our state-of-the-art facility, beautiful racetrack, casino, dining. So it sounds like it's a promotional, lighthearted commercial. I'm just looking at the amount of words and sentences here. Maybe a 30-second promo, something like that. Keeping with tradition, Saratoga Gaming and Raceway was the first video gaming. So, friendly. I think that's the voice you're going for here. And look at the end. You'll have the time of your life. Okay, so you ready to let it rip? Right? Now, I'm assuming that I'll be reading this, and if there needs to be edits, I'll do it that way. I'm not going to try and do this all in one rip. Okay, here we go. Come experience the excitement at Saratoga Gaming and Raceway. Our state-of-the-art facility offers a beautiful racetrack, casino, and dining facilities, and is located in the quaint and historic Saratoga Springs, a popular destination for over 100 years. In keeping with tradition, Saratoga Gaming and Raceway was the first video gaming property established in New York State. There is so much to do here. Odds are you'll have the time of your life. Okay, criticisms. I read that too fast. It's my first read through it. I literally didn't even see it until just now. I didn't key in on the most important parts. Like that, I think, is also critical. Let me have a second. Take at this. Come experience the excitement at Saratoga Gaming and Raceway. Our state-of-the-art facility offers a beautiful racetrack, casino, and dining facilities, and is located in the quaint and historic Saratoga Springs, a popular destination for over 100 years. In keeping with tradition, Saratoga Gaming and Raceway was the first video gaming property established in New York State. There is so much to do here. Odds are you'll have the time of your life. So I kind of like the tag. I don't like that script. Honestly, I don't even really like that script at all. Especially the part where it says a popular destination for over 100 years. I always like to say more than 100 years. And I don't even like the way I'm reading this. So I don't like the way I'm doing this. I don't like the script itself. I'm not feeling this one, but it gives you an idea of how I would read it. Kind of friendly, on the up, on the energetic side. So we'll leave that one aside now. Okay, let's see what this one is here. And I do remember as I copied and pasted these, I tried to pick energetic. I tried to pick, and this one's got some serious tone here to it. So let me just give it a read. 12 jumbo jets crashed every year. Something would be done about it. Every year, nearly 6,000 teens die in automobile accidents. Okay, teen driving deaths. Okay, this is serious. Good news is we can start today. Time to make the world a safer place. Okay, so this is a commercial for Allstate. Okay, so I'm really going to get up here on the microphone and do this differently, right? I'm going to do it this differently. If 12 jumbo jets crashed every year, something would be done about it. Every year, nearly 6,000 teens die in automobile accidents. We can all help stop teen driving deaths, and the good news is we can start today. It's time to make the world a safer place to drive. It's time to make the world a safer place to drive. That's Allstate stand. Allstate, you're in good hands. So let me try that again. And that's part of it, right? Your first read is cold, trying to feel it out. Always give yourself a second opportunity. If 12 jumbo jets crashed every year, something would be done about it. Well, every year, nearly 6,000 teens die in automobile accidents. We can all help stop teen driving deaths, and the good news is we can start today. It's time to make the world a safer place to drive. That's Allstate stand. Allstate, you're in good hands. I want to sell that. This is important, right? This is an important message. If 12 jumbo jets crashed every... Nope, I didn't. See? Took off too quick. Try it again. If 12 jumbo jets crashed every year, something would be done about it. Every year, nearly 6,000 teens die in automobile accidents. Even it's too uplift. This has to come across as the severity it is. If 12 jumbo jets crashed every year, something would be done about it. Every year, nearly 6,000 teens die in automobile accidents. We can all help stop teen driving deaths, and the good news is we can start today. It's time to make the world a safer place to drive. That's Allstate stand. Allstate, you're in good hands. Okay, better. Again, this script, I would change it. I would modify it. It's word for word, right? It doesn't sound like me. It doesn't sound like things I typically say or how I say it. So somebody else is writing, but that's your job, right? To deliver it. Okay. What is this one for? Bracketing is a common technique practiced by photographers when shooting in trick. Okay, so I think this is more from an audiobook perspective, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to read this one flat, right? You're listening for 3 hours straight. I don't want to fatigue your ear. Bracketing is a common technique practiced by photographers when shooting in tricky light situations. All you do is take one picture at the exposure you, your camera, or your handheld light meter thinks is correct. Then take further pictures over and under the initial exposure. This ensures that at least one photo from the set is properly exposed. Okay, that's all right. Could probably do better on the second try, as always. Bracketing is a common technique practiced by photographers when shooting in tricky light situations. All you do is take one picture at the exposure you, your camera, or your handheld light meter thinks is correct. Then take further pictures over and under the initial exposure. This ensures that at least one photo from the set is properly exposed. All right, there's an audiobook. More flat. Again, I'm trying to predict the medium, where this is going, understand the tone of the script, and what exactly somebody wanted. And let me also say, there's a whole separate side here, which I didn't get to do, but, there's promo voice, the old, deep thundering drive, like I'm on the radio, you're listening to 94.7, that type voice, which you can also do. Those are quicker reads, those are punchier, those almost always sound like that. And use proximity effect with the microphone. But final tips here on reading a script, practice makes a professional voice. And honestly, professional voice is not even necessarily what I do, but this is something I've learned how to do, control my voice. Number 2, slow down. Even me in this video and the scripts that I just practiced. Slow down, Brazil. You'll do better when you slow it down. Multiple takes, as you saw, are usually better. Don't fret if it takes you 6 times. So what? You'll feel it out. You might find that your 4th take was better than your 6th, but give it a couple chances. It's rare that anybody nails it like the first time. You can only be a 1-take Jake so often. It does happen, but not all the time. And yeah, take direction, but also be able to work without it, because you may not have that luxury all the time to have somebody helping and coaching you through it. So how to read a script. There's a little more to it maybe than you had previously thought. I really appreciate you being here. If this video provided you value, thank you for watching. Consider giving it a thumbs up, and also subscribe to this channel for lots more tips and tricks on operating out of your home studio. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro, and maybe you clicked on this video because you're like a lot of people out there these days, setting up your home studio environment, but realizing there's a lot of decisions, there's a lot of equipment to be purchased. What do you do first? What do you do next? What's the priority? And I've tried to narrow things down to 4 big factors, which I will present for you momentarily. I'll try and give you in order how exactly I would go about this. But to summarize, so many decisions. A microphone, a camera, a computer, maybe a better computer than the one you already have. Lighting, which is something that most people don't have or don't even know how to modify in their home environment. How about software? Will you be using Ecamm or OBS? Will you be using an encoder, something like the A10 Mini Pro, which is sitting right in front of me? Again, tons of decisions, costly ones, timely ones. Where do you even start with all of this? So I've narrowed it down to my top priorities, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And yes, in this order. Believe it or not, number 1 has little to do with technology. It's all about the recording space, the environment that you're in. Number 2 is lighting, which is also really less about technology. Believe it or not, 3 and 4, the last 2, are mostly tech heavy, with the audio first, followed by the video. So let's begin with number 1, the space. What do I mean by that? Well, a couple different things. The background. What's behind me? Is it too much? Is it distracting? Is it controllable in a sense that sun and shade and shadows or people behind me or distractions behind me, will they be changing? Do I have complete control over what I can't even see that's behind me right now? Space and angles. Now, as you can tell here in the home studio, I'm using kind of the corner of a room. 2 walls that come together precisely right behind me. But how will you use your space? Do you have a small space? Is your space way too big? Can you make a really big space feel a lot more small and intimate with partitions, with angling of the camera? How do you use this? And we'll talk about optimal ways in just a second. But what you're trying to do with your space is make it look inviting. You don't want something that's, again, distracting or fatiguing on the eyes, or something that offers more questions than just focus and attention that you're trying to draw to either yourself or a subject or the content or topic at hand. I'm also here to say that optimally your space in a YouTube studio or a home studio like this should be repeatable. Now, I've got another video about optimizing your home studio, your always ready home studio. Push a couple buttons, don't move anything. It's so much easier to leave your equipment be in the home studio instead of setting up and striking every single time you make a video or you do a live stream. But repeatable is nice. How can you make your environment, always just look like this? I walk in the room, push a couple buttons, sit down, the chair's at the right height, the camera's pointing right at me, no adjustments. I just rock and roll with making the video. So how can you make it repeatable? How can you also make it comfortable? I mean, think about yourself. If you're the person who's going to be using this home studio, here I am in this same spot, which I've been for hundreds of hours across the last several years. Make it inviting for yourself too, not just your viewer, but make it ergonomic. Can I reach everything here? Do I have to twist too far to get to something? Do I have to go off camera if I need to reach something? How can you make it friendly for yourself or whoever, the presenter and performer, to make it comfortable? So your space, super important before anything and everything else, because your space leads to lighting and optimal audio and video. But speaking of lighting, a couple different ways you could go about this. Now, here in my studio, here in this room, all the windows, there's 1, 2, 3 different windows. They are all blacked out. Curtains, moving blankets covering all the walls. There's no natural light that ever comes in this room. Why? Because I don't want it to affect my recording. I'd like to come in here at 6 in the morning if I need to, 6 at night, noon, midnight, you name it, all hours of the day I can come in here. And again, it's repeatable. It's always going to look the same. So I'm using all bulb lighting, actually LEDs, to be quite honest with you, but I'm not using natural light. You do need to be careful. If you're just using natural light, like sun coming through the window, that sun and that lighting is changing constantly throughout the course of a day. I'm also looking to be evenly lit. Now I've got a key light, I've got a fill light over here, I've got 2 hair lights. You can see this side of my head is a little bit cooler, this side's a little bit warmer. Yeah, there's lights above me shooting down just to light my hair. There's lights that are up lights on the walls behind me. There's those LEDs, this side right here. See that little ribbon color moving this way? So I've got a lot going in a sense of lighting. This is all very advanced. The most basic thing is that you want your subject to be evenly lit. There's not a bunch of huge shadows on my face. If I were to, cover half my face right now and had that weird shadow, that would look quite weird, right? So evenly lit as best you could do, either with natural light or with bulb lights, one or the other. Make it complementary. Spend some time on your lighting. You know, if you're watching a video, it's going to be so distracting that you can't see half the person's face because it's overexposed or it's really bright on one side and shaded on the other. Some people do prefer soft lighting, either because of a softbox or because the lighting is not like 2 inches away from their face. Yes, it matters. There's a balance of distance and lighting intensity that's best for you. Close distance, high intensity, probably not the best. Farther distance, higher intensity, okay, pretty good. Farther distance, minimal intensity, it's not going to have the desired effect. All of that is a balance that can help you make it soft. Also, diffusion on a lighting, which you can look that up separately. Diffusion on a lighting source is going to greatly help not have hard lighting on somebody's face. What is hard lighting? Wish I had a flashlight here right now. Hard lighting, imagine shining a flashlight on my face. Very pointed, very focused. That's hard lighting. That's what you want to avoid in making a video. But experiment, right? You don't even have to be an expert at this. Give yourself some time first in your space. Get comfortable in your space. Then work on the lighting. Move some lights around. Don't just plop one here, plop one there, and think, that's it, we're done. Experiment. What happens if I move this closer? What happens if I move it 6 inches to the left or right, and then I alter this? Please experiment with your lighting. It takes a lot of time to properly light something, even for the experts. Okay, now we're actually getting into the X's and O's here, the audio and video of your priorities here. Definitely work on your audio before your video. I say that because no matter how good this studio looks, right? If my audio was like this the entire time, how long do you think you would be listening to this video? I'm pretty sure, seriously, like if it sounded like this or if it sounded like this, I mean, you would probably have given up on this video a long time ago. Man, that's distracting. That is really, really distracting. Okay, enough of that, right? But if it sounded like that, I can't watch this. No matter how good this video looks, people are actually a lot more forgiving about lesser quality video. It doesn't have to be in pristine HD so long as they can hear it. So how do we make your audio sound good? Number one, the acoustics of the room. Now this little room right here, totally treated. I've got sound panels that absorb all the echoes and reverberations. Basically, when I talk, my voice hits that wall, but that sound panel captures it. It doesn't reflect off of all the walls and then come back in the mic so that it sounds something similar to this. So like if I was in an empty bathroom right now, this is how it would sound. I'm of course simulating reverberation, but you know, we've all heard this, like a tall ceiling room, a high ceiling room, a tile floor room, a hardwood floor, an empty room. It's going to sound like this. Give yourself the benefit of good acoustics so that the microphone, no matter how good or bad the quality is, it doesn't have to fight all of that reverberation. How do you cut it down? Put up sound blankets behind you, in front of you, off camera, wherever you can. You're trying for soft surfaces that absorb sound. Mic technique, also a huge part of your audio. I'm usually about this distance away. Hang loose from a condenser mic. Now, if I was on a dynamic like the SM7B or the RE20, I'm probably like this distance away. So that's like half the hang loose distance, right? I just have to work this one a lot closer. But this mic, I know how it is, hang loose distance away, but mic technique is super important because this Neumann U87AI, like really great mic, but how does it sound when I'm not using it properly because it's now a foot away and facing the wrong way? And I've got compression and stuff on there, so it's even going to fix it, but that sounds horrible if not used properly. Mic technique, very important. Don't just clip on a mic like halfway down your shirt. Put it up, put a lavalier here. Put your condenser mic right here. A dynamic mic, don't speak 2 feet away from it. It's got to be close to you depending on the microphone you're using and what it was designed for. Signal chain, do you want any processing on this? Of course, I've got EQ, compression, I've got a little expansion. That's more for an advanced situation, but that's a possibility with a lot of interfaces. What are you aiming for here the most with audio? 2 things. Clarity and something that's not fatiguing. Clarity in a sense that you can hear every word I'm saying. It's not muffled. It's not overly boosted on the high or low end, and not fatiguing where, yeah, it's pleasing to the ears. There's not that, again, that echo, that reverberation. All of this stuff makes audio fatiguing to listen to over a long period of time. So that's what you're shooting for, clarity and something that's not fatiguing. If that's what you want to aim for first in audio, that's a great start. Okay, last, and not exactly least, like this is important, but video is usually the most forgiving. I mean, I'm shooting this right now, this video on a Canon 6D full frame DSLR camera. It's not even the newest. I mean, there's bigger and better and greater cameras out there. So even my video here, it's really good, I think, but it's definitely not the best. And even if I have a webcam up there, even if I were shooting this with a webcam or something lesser, like even a GoPro, okay, as long as it's in focus and a couple different things here, the shot is framed well, like I'm not off center or I'm not, way down here in the frame, or my head's not cut off by the frame. So long as you have the basics, people will forgive maybe your video imaging quality. Shot framing, exposure is important, right? So we talk about the lighting. Well, there's distance with the lighting, there's intensity with the lighting, but there's also the camera settings. What's the exposure set to? Are you under or overexposed? What if there's something hot and I say overexposed or lesser exposed in your background of your shot? How do you manage for that in the background? How do you adjust your camera appropriately? Also, do you have the right color temperature for your color balance? Is it looking too blue? Is it looking too green? Are the colors off? Depth of field. Focal range, essentially, and I've got it pretty narrow here so that if I get closer, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this, I'll go out of focus. If I sit back here, look, you can tell my face is out of focus. My hand way back here, now out of focus. But watch as it comes closer here, right about there, in focus, and then it's going to get out of focus as it gets closer. My lens is on a manual setting right now. It's not even auto-focusing. I'm doing that on purpose. But your depth of field, in my case, it's super shallow. Do you want that? If you're not auto-focusing, I don't know if you want that. If your camera doesn't have auto-focusing, you may not want to do that if you're moving around a bunch. You want to make sure you stay in focus. And then just consistent, right? Again, with your background, with your setup, with your home studio, you're looking for a consistent look. You're looking for a shot that's framed properly. Maybe the lens is somewhere centered up, maybe with my forehead. It's ever so slightly shooting down on me, but something consistent video after video. I think that's optimal as you talk about these four big factors and fundamentals. So hopefully that helped you out. Hopefully that gave you a little motivation as well as inspiration and maybe some tips from behind the scenes. If you've got any questions, reach out to me in the comment section below. I'll do my best to get back to you. Also, thumbs up on this video if it provided you some value. And don't forget, subscribe to Home Studio Pro. Lots more great stuff coming out real soon. When it comes to this microphone, the Shure SM7B, a lot of things actually precede itself. I mean, you already know so many things about this mic because you've seen it literally everywhere. By the way, welcome to Home Studio Pro. If you like this video, thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing to this channel. I've got tons of other great things in the near future coming your way. But as for the SM7B, you already know its history, right? Significant. Michael Jackson used it on Thriller. I feel obligated to say that on this video because everybody else says that in SM7B videos. Popularity, right? Like a lot of recording artists have used it in the past, but it's everywhere right now. Podcasts, broadcast, content creation here on YouTube. Everybody's using the 7B, even if they don't know why they're using it. They just see other people, and so they buy it for their home studio. The tonality of this microphone, yeah, on the darker, on the warmer side, but good for speech, not terribly bright. As for the output of this mic, yeah, it needs a ton of gain. It's a relative quiet mic, okay on the sensitivity, but it needs a lot of clean gain, sometimes even an inline preamp to help boost the output of this dynamic microphone. And what is it good for? In my opinion, loud speech, and normal speech, but especially loud speech, like, yeah, for example, singing, but I would definitely not record your next ASMR video with this microphone. Loud speech, singing, The microphone's got a couple features, a high-pass filter on the back, right? So a low cut. Also a presence boost switch. These actual physical switches on the back, you can modify the sound directly on the back of the microphone without any software or intervention. But the biggest unknown of this mic, right? We haven't talked about this yet. The wind foam you're using on it, and there's two different choices that come with it. The wind foam you use will actually change the sound of this microphone. Now, mind you, everything you've heard so far is this mic in the thinner wind foam, completely processed. Eventually, we will get to some samples, but just understand that the choice of wind foam or no wind foam is going to make it sound different. Now, I show you here the A7WS. That's this guy, which I'm not actively using right now, but they say this one is for close talking. I've seen this in radio studios, and it does make sense. It's a lot thicker. It's a lot thicker than the one that's on there right now that I'm using. And Shure flat out says, this wind foam, the A7WS, is for close talking. As opposed to the one that's on here right now, the RK345, they recommend that one to simply cut down on unwanted breath. Now, I'm a person that thinks that wind foam should be there to block actual wind, not plosives out of somebody's mouth, but I guess that is wind. I guess a pop filter for me would be the better choice. Obviously, on conventional microphones and broadcast microphones, wind foam is what's typically used to cut down on plosives. So those are the two wind foams. Here's a third option for you. Oh, what is this video rated? Naked? The microphone naked. That's right. Could you use this microphone without any wind foam at all? I'm here to make the argument, and you'll hear it in the examples. This microphone, by far, sounds best when it's naked. So there you go. And I'll let you hear it. That brings me to sample time. I'm going to give you some processed and some dry samples and also a plosive test with each one of these wind foams and also with no wind foams. So here we go. A go-to mic for broadcasters, vocalists, podcasters, instruments, and more. The SM7B is the answer for anyone looking for top-tier performance. The Shure SM7B is a dynamic cardioid studio mic with a smooth, flat, wide-range frequency response appropriate for virtually any professional audio applications. The SM7B features excellent shielding against electromagnetic hum generated by computer monitors, neon lights, and other electrical devices. A go-to mic for broadcasters, vocalists, podcasters, instruments, and more. The SM7B is the answer for anyone looking for top-tier performance. The Shure SM7B is a dynamic cardioid studio mic with a smooth, flat, wide-range frequency response appropriate for virtually any professional audio applications. The SM7B features excellent shielding against electromagnetic hum generated by computer monitors, neon lights, and other electrical devices. A go-to mic for broadcasters, vocalists, podcasters, instruments, and more. The SM7B is the answer for anyone looking for top-tier performance. The Shure SM7B is a dynamic cardioid studio mic with a smooth, flat, wide-range frequency response appropriate for virtually any professional audio applications. The SM7B features excellent shielding against electromagnetic hum generated by computer monitors, neon lights, and other electrical devices. A go-to mic for broadcasters, vocalists, podcasters, instruments, and more. The SM7B is the answer for anyone looking for top-tier performance. The Shure SM7B is a dynamic cardioid studio mic with a smooth, flat, wide-range frequency response appropriate for virtually any professional audio applications. The SM7B features excellent shielding against electromagnetic hum generated by computer monitors, neon lights, and other electrical devices. A go-to mic for broadcasters, vocalists, podcasters, instruments, and more. The SM7B is the answer for anyone looking for top-tier performance. The Shure SM7B is a dynamic cardioid studio mic with a smooth, flat, wide-range frequency response appropriate for virtually any professional audio applications. The SM7B features excellent shielding against electromagnetic hum generated by computer monitors, neon lights, and other electrical devices. A go-to mic for broadcasters, vocalists, podcasters, instruments, and more, the SM7B is the answer for anyone looking for top-tier performance. The Shure SM7B is a dynamic cardioid studio mic with a smooth, flat, wide-range frequency response appropriate for virtually any professional audio applications. The SM7B features excellent shielding against electromagnetic hum, generated by computer monitors, neon lights, and other electrical devices. Peter Piper would like to propose that his podcast gets promoted. You like that one? This was the big windscreen. Peter Piper would like to propose that his podcast gets promoted. Smaller windscreen, and here we go. Peter Piper would like to propose that his podcast gets promoted. No windscreen. So, you got to listen at all of them there. Plosives, wet, dry, processed, unprocessed. What did you think? Let me know in the comments section below. Sometimes what I think is not actually what everybody else agrees on. But this is the wind foam I see most commonly used with this mic, the small one. But let me take it off, and I'll tell you that I find that extra little crispiness in the sound. And in fact, I gotta be honest, this microphone without the wind foam, with no wind foam, sounds a lot more like the Electro Voice RE20, which I really like how it sounds. So let me know in the comments section below, do you agree with me that this mic sounds better completely naked? Now, here's the question. Could you use it that way? Would you be okay having a mic that looks like this in a visual medium? I think that's where you run into some challenges. Thanks for watching. Thumbs up if you like this video. Don't forget, subscribe to Home Studio Pro. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro, and if you're like me, you do a little live streaming. And you like to get in the live chat while you're doing it. You know, a little Q&A. Isn't it best, though, to put the questions up on the screen while you're responding to them? I feel like it provides the viewer with a little bit more clarity. It ups the production value. It keeps you on point and on topic. So questions on the screen for me have always been huge. But how exactly do you do that, especially if you have a hardware-based ecosystem like I do with the A10 Mini Pro? Instead of something software-based like OBS or Ecamm, it's way easier to bring those YouTube questions onto your screen as an overlay. But here with the hardware, how exactly do I do that? Well, that's what this video is here to explain. You'll need two things. Number one, Google Chrome. You'll also need Live Chat Overlay installed. You can get it from the Chrome store. Somebody named Aaron Parecki has come up with this software. Aaron is great for all things live streaming. Highly recommend that you check out Aaron's channel. But that's what you need to have. That's what you need to get. And now I'm going to explain how you actually put this to use. Okay, so let's say that you've got it installed and you're here on YouTube Studio and you're about to start your live stream, which I'm not actually going to do right now. But you go into these three little dots here on the top chat window and click Pop Out Chat. Okay, now this pops up here. And the first thing I always take a look at is the aspect ratio. It says 1 and target is 1.77. Now, what that means is I need to stretch out that window until that number says 1.77. So let me just go full screen on this for you here. Bring it out. Watch that number change. Watch as I bring it right. 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. And you'll see why this is important in just a second. 1.77. You know what? I always do a little bit more. I do 1.88. I bring it all the way to the bottom, and then I get it to say 1.78. Okay, so I've stretched it out the entire height of the screen, and I've also now moved it so that the ratio says 1.78. Now, that is critical because as I go back to this here, you're going to see that I also, with the ATEM, I make a key for that. So when I hit the key button, look what it just did. It keyed out everything around this little graphic right here. Now, we'll get into the actual chat and how we use it in just a second, but first I need to show you how to put it on the screen. So again, this is what my Mac is producing on one of the inputs on the ATEM, and I'm keying out. First off, I'm cropping everything above that white line. I'm cropping everything to the left. I'm cropping everything below it. And I think even over here to the right, they don't want this graphic, first off, to be way over here, because if it is, watch this. Now when I key it, you can kind of see what's happening here. I'm only able to key in, or I've set it up to key in just this area right around the actual comment in the live chat that'll pop up on the screen here. So let me go back to the Mac, show you that. Again, here's what the Mac looks like. Here's what the Mac looks like keyed over my shot here through the ATEM software. Now, keying things is not necessarily the focus of this video, but I am using a Luma key. You can understand why, because there's obviously enough black and dark black colors around here to key all of this out. And there's really not the darkest of blacks in this graphic. That's why where it says sample user here, it doesn't actually key that part out. So this is good, right? This is perfect. This is exactly how I want it to be. And this is a pretty easy setup, right? All you need to do is have your computer or a computer hooked up to your ATEM so you can do this. Now, clearly, as you go on here on the live chat, I can clear this, it'll go away. But what if I put here, test comment, and this should show up. Another test comment. Hey, I really, that's not spelled right. Really like this stream. Hey, I really don't like this channel. All right, so watch this. I want to show you something here. So as we go, right, here are all the comments from other people that are inevitably popping up during the live stream. You can pick and choose what you want to bring up. So for example, somebody had a test comment. It pops up right there. And then let me show you what it looks like with the key. And all I'm going to do here, right? So I have a whole, I should also show you this. I have a whole second monitor, which is right here, which I can always see the computer. So for example, I can go back to this window right here where it says another test comment. I'll show you what the key looks like. So when I'm ready to click, all I do when I see it, I just click on that. Another test comment comes up. Now, how about somebody who says, hey, I really like this stream. Now I've clicked on that. But what I'm not doing is I'm not choosing to put, hey, I really don't like this channel, right? up on the live chat. So you don't necessarily need to put everything up on the screen. And that's kind of an issue with the software-based stuff. Sometimes if it puts every comment on the screen, you don't necessarily have the ability to pick and choose what actually goes up as it happens live. So I do appreciate this about the live chat overlay software is that, again, I literally have the choice. If I want to put that up, great. If I don't have to put this up. And also if I want to make it go away, let me show you this real fast. The clear button is right there. All you do is hit clear, which I'll do in a second here, clear, and it goes right away. So again, just to fully explain this, so I hope you understand it, you are about to do a live stream, right? You're here on this window in YouTube Studio. You just bring up the pop-out chat, bring this window all the way down and then all the way to the right so it fills up your space, gets that target aspect ratio of 1.77. Again, otherwise, if you cut it off too short right there, you would have your comments just, it wouldn't work, right? You need to stretch it out on your bottom screen here or on the screen of your computer and get it past that target aspect ratio. Again, I just do a little bit more. Probably don't need to, but I do that. And then, another thing to take note of is if you're actually going to use your computer while you stream, now this is a problem, right? You can see all my apps on the bottom there. You can see anything else I'm doing in this little area that's keyed over my shot. So that is something to take note of, to be cautious about. The way I do it like this is perfect. It's good. I should say it's good and it's great. It's not perfect in a sense that you can't always multitask. I'll show you another thing that I do here. A lot of times I'm actually using a soundboard. Let me pull up Farrago here. So sometimes if I keep my soundboard up here, that way I can still pull up all the comments, and when the soundboard is right there, it doesn't bleed over into the area that's keyed out here so that the live chat can show. For example, if I want to do my beer sound effect, I can click that while at the same time seeing this. I can do crickets, obviously, too. So I'm doing all this with that separate window open, it's just above it. Because here's the problem. If this window is covering that, and then I do the live chat key, yeah, you're seeing anything that's on my Mac. And at that point, it's not great. So hopefully that makes sense and that explains it. Again, I'm not going to go fully into the Luma keying of things. That's probably best suited for a different video with the ATEM control software. But this is an easy way. If you use the ATEM to do live chat, again, live chat overlay in the Google Chrome store, it's free, it's easy, and I've seen a lot of other people using it too flawlessly, so it's really good stuff from Aaron Parecki. Thumbs up on this video if it provided you any value, and don't forget, subscribe here on Home Studio Pro. You know I've got lots more great stuff coming out soon. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. In this video, I wanted to share a device that I use all the time. It's for HDMI video playback in my live streams, in my recordings, or also if I just want to loop a video as a live stream. I use the Naomi Atom 4K digital media player. Now, the best thing about this is the cost. I bought it for about $50 on Amazon. And this product competes with things like the HyperDeck from Blackmagic Design. Now, it doesn't do everything a HyperDeck does, but it does a lot of it, and it does it really well. A HyperDeck goes for like starting at $500 or even more, $1,000 or $1,500, depending on what model you get. Again, this for $50, what it does, how I use it, it's great. I'm intrigued by it. I'm impressed by it. I've got to recommend it to you here. Now, it actually sits over my left shoulder here in this rack. I could show it to you, but it's kind of tucked away. I thought this would be a better opportunity to show you what it looks like front and back. Now, it's got the IR jack on the front so that I can use this remote. This is literally the only way to control it. So you can't do software into it. You can't control it over Ethernet. That is obviously the limitation, and that's why it's $50. But again, that's like maybe the only drawback. It's got USB ports on the front and on the back. It's also got a micro SD card reader. In fact, that's how I'm using it. I've got a little 128 gig micro SD card in there with all my files, which I'll show you in just a second. That goes right in the front. Then on the back side, which is on the bottom there, the power jack, the HDMI output, which goes straight into my switcher. So from right down here, wired around into the back of the ATEM over here. It's got another USB port on the back, so 2 ports, which is great. I don't know if you'd need that ever, one on the front, one on the back, but it's great to have it. It also has an AV output for old analog, I think RCA outputs. Again, I feel like that world is long behind us, but maybe if you wanted to take the audio out of this device, you could use the analog out. So forget the video. I guess that would be SD coming out. It's certainly not HD, but it's flexible. It gives you a lot of options. I had a previous version of a player like this, not from Naomi, but from a different brand, and it did not offer all these features, nor was it the best quality. The playback on this thing is immaculate, and you know what? I will show it to you here in just a second. The specs go like this. You can plug in drives, whether thumb drives or SSD drives, of up to 4 terabytes. So you can't use a huge one like an 8 or a 16 terabyte drive, but a 4 terabyte drive, that's perfect for most, USB thumbsticks and such. It plays a ton of different file formats, which is not something even the HyperDeck can say. The HyperDeck is very finicky on what file formats it plays and doesn't play, and you can't have 2 different formats on your card. This one, you can have a wealth of different things on your stick or your card. It will play pretty much everything. MP4, MKV, AVI, TS, MOV, VOB, etc., etc. Plays H.265 files and HEVC files, so very versatile in that. It outputs 1080, it outputs 2160, all at 60 hertz through the HDMI. I feel like I should take the opportunity to show you what it looks like here. This is the interface, which is pretty simple to navigate and understand. And again, I literally just use my remote here. I can't play all the videos on here because of copyright reasons on this channel versus my main channel where I use all these scenic shots, but I can show you this. It's videos I made for the Oakland A's baseball team previewing their upcoming season, and I click on one and there you go. It plays. So you can see the quality and the resolution. There's me. Pretty good, right? I mean, honestly, the quality of this image right here that I'm recording versus what's playing over there, I feel like that's pretty sharp. But again, the interface is literally that simple. You can see that I'm in a folder here. I can go out of it. So folders versus actual files here. Wonder if I have like a test pattern here in this one. Yeah, I think I do. So here's like bars and tone. And yes, oh, by the way, yeah, obviously it will play audio through here too. I've got that routed differently, long story short, but it does have the ability to play sound. I had that turned down there for the moment. But yeah, it's literally that easy to operate. It's got controls. I can fast forward, I can rewind, all with the remote. It's intuitive. It's like working an Apple TV or a Roku. It really is that simple. So hopefully you understand what the specs are, how to operate this by this point. How would you use this? Like, how do I use this? Well, a couple different ways. Now, again, you can't like trigger it to play. You literally have to use the remote. So you have to kind of do this analog style. But if you wanted to play an intro for your live stream, like you could do a countdown. And then as soon as the countdown is over, hit a button and on you go with your stream. You could do this with a looped video feed. And actually, I'll tell you, that's exactly what I was doing here. Let me come back from the color bars for a second. When I had all these A's profiles videos here, so I had these just literally playing on a loop. And after the first one is done, it'll play the next one. It'll play all of these. It's so weird to see two me's on the screen. It'll play all of these in order, which is outstanding because I can just start the stream, hit play, hit loop, and it's just going to go on and obviously play the videos as long as I want. So a looped video feed or like a looped video stream. It's also good if I had like a background monitor. I've been thinking for a while about putting a monitor up on this wall that just showed a looped background, like you see on TV studios. Just not sure how it would work here in my studio. But if you wanted to have this Naomi Atom 4K as your source, you could easily do that and have it feed a background TV. Or also, if I wanted to just do playback during a program segment or a live segment. So forget the intro. What if I was talking about something or doing a presentation and I said, you know what, watch this video. Play, take it, bring the audio up. There you go. Turn my mic off. And now you're playing back during your segment. So again, this is a little bit limited. I can't trigger it with the ATEM. I can't trigger it with the Stream Deck. It's very analog. It's got the remote. That's maybe the limitation. But again, for $50 versus $500, yeah, this is quite the steal. Best features, in my opinion, number one, this is an all hardware-based video player, so I'm not playing it off my computer, which might stall or slow down or crash or freeze, or it might take up resources I need otherwise on the computer. It's extremely stable. Once I start playing videos, it never really stops or shuts down or has any problems like that. It also has this feature where when you turn it on and off, it has a quick start feature so that I hit on, and instead of loading and showing me the menu, if you enable quick start, it'll go right back to the last video that you were playing. So if you only play one video and you turn it off at night, turn it back on in the morning, it'll go right back to the same video and instantly play it. No menus, no nothing. Easy operation. The remote is included. Some of the cables you need are included. And the fact that it takes 2 USB drives or 2 USB sticks, it can do that, and it's a micro SD card reader, so you can put on, any kind of format you want. This doesn't have to be a difficult thing of how to get your files like from a computer to this device. It's quite simple with a thumb drive or a micro SD card. So again, playing back videos, the ability to do this, I think, is huge. And at this price point, honestly, I own one. I'm thinking about just getting another one for my remote setup. It is that small. It is that easy. If I were holding it up in my hand, it's like literally that big. It's tiny. It works so well, and couldn't say enough good things about it. So let me know if this video helped you out. Thumbs up on it if it did, and subscribe to the channel. I've got lots more great stuff coming out here on Home Studio Pro. I suppose this is my product review of the Beyerdynamic DT990 Pro headphones, but in all reality, this is more like my endorsement video. I absolutely love these. I wear them almost every day. I've put them to the test. I think they are so awesome and so underrated for gaming, for editing, and just for flat out listening and enjoying audio. Now, I'm not wearing these right now to record this. Full disclosure, I don't think these are perfect for absolutely everything, and I'll get into that in just a second. But I do feel like when I see somebody else wearing these headphones, I know something about them. I know that they know what they're doing. It is kind of that endorsement type situation. Let me get into the basics of these cans. The 990 Pros, these were actually launched back in 1988. So like a lot of Beyer products, they've been around for a while. They've stood the test of time. Other things have come and gone and been introduced, but they keep making and keep selling these for an obvious reason. These are open back headphones. If you've never had a pair of those before, just understand this is going to be a bit different. The sound doesn't get trapped like they do here in a closed back situation of the 770s. Through these side vents here, audio is meant to escape, to make it more of like a speaker listening situation, an ambient listening situation, instead of trapping all the audio in your ear cups. There are multiple variants of the 990s. There's the 990 editions, I think. Don't get those confused with the Pros. As for the Pros, there's the 250 ohm version. There's also an 80 ohm version. And if that's not confusing enough, the 990s are also part of this very famous 770, 880 line. So a lot of these Beyerdynamic cans, they look similar. They're different sound profile, different purpose of how they're supposed to be used. Just don't get it confused, even though from afar, they look all very similar. You can get these right now for around and sometimes even under $130, which is comparable to the 770s. And again, if it's these or something slightly cheaper, I do think you get an extra bang for your buck in spending this $130. Let's show you the sound profile here, and these are fun headphones for a reason. I mean, this is relatively V-shaped. Not as much as maybe a pair of Beats headphones where the lows and the highs are dramatically pushed, but I mean, look at that nice little bump there, all the way down to what, like 60 or 70 hertz up to maybe 300 or 400 hertz. That mid to high bass region, the one that really resonates on certain songs or certain sound effects that have a deep booming sound, you're definitely going to hear those in these headphones. There are a couple mid-range dips. You see one in the high mids just below 1,000, maybe 700, another one probably at 1,500. I feel like sometimes they could have done without those. I mean, if I could go back and make small improvements, maybe flatten those out. The mids seem a little bit veiled on occasion, but then the highs obviously have a presence too, up near 10,000. So very much V-shaped. The highs and lows are both there. The mids are just fine, not as flat as could be, but you can definitely see. And by the way, these 770s, they have nothing of that push above the 100 hertz region and range. So when you listen to these, like I said, this is how a lot of people's speakers are going to sound, with a little bit of a more dramatic bass, maybe some high-end push. It's going to have that fun V-shape, and that's why I like listening to these while I edit, because I truly feel like these reflect how most people will actually hear it on whatever they're listening to my content on. Okay, up next, let's talk about these cans in several different ways. Number one, the build quality. And just like the 770s and the 880s, a chunky design. These are durable. They're robust. You can drop them. I'd hate to see that. You could sit on them. I've done that. These do stand the test of time. And even if you do break something, everything here is completely replaceable. Obviously, the ear pads, like most headphones, but also even the headband up here, which is kind of a pleathery material, doesn't get gross or disgusting. You can easily clean it. No problem. But you can replace this if you need to. You can replace almost, everything here. All parts are replaceable on these headphones. I have become a pretty big fan of these velour ear pads here. These are black. They're a little bit harder to see. You can switch them out for a white color too. But, after wearing pleather type ear pads over all these years and and not understanding maybe the difference fabric would make, it is a true luxury to have these. They sit differently on your ear. By the way, there's not a ton of clamping force on all of these Beyer headphones. I do feel like the 990s clamp just a little bit more than the 770s, but again, that's just a minor observation, not a problem or a big detail that you need to know. But these velour ear pads, nice cushion, nice seal around the ears. In this case, audio is escaping, but it does hang onto your head pretty well. And for longer listening periods, these don't get you too hot. They don't get you sticky for sure. And the 990, at least the 250 ohm version, has a coiled cord. I do want to mention that. Some people don't like that. This is my perfect headphone. I am a fan of the coiled cord, mostly because whatever I'm plugging into is usually right in front of me. So I'd rather have this and stretch it if I need, rather than a long cord of a couple feet that I couldn't put to use. Let's get into the sound profile. I showed you the frequency response curve, but yeah, punchy lows. I think that's the best way I could describe the lows of these headphones. Obviously, this is a YouTube video. I can't have you listen to these, but just trust me, the low is there and it gives you punch. It's got some body to it. It's not muddy. It's not dirty. It's not fatiguing, but when it needs to be there, it definitely is. The highs are not fatiguing. That's something I would say, not necessarily about these, but the Sony 7506s, the highs on those headphones, if you listen long enough, it is a bit fatiguing on the ear. I'll tell you the one thing about these, I could listen to audio longer on these than pretty much any other headphone model that I own. Earbuds, proper headphones, in-ear monitors, I can listen to everything longer on here because these are the least fatiguing. They also feature kind of a wide sound stage. You would expect that, having the open back design, right? But there's the other part of this too, that it doesn't exactly have a wide open feel, in a sense that I've listened to other open back headphones and it does feel like sound is escaping out of the room. And if I snap my fingers around the room, I can hear it as if there's nothing even on my head. These are open. They're not wide open though. Sound does leak out of here, but not a lot more than like a 770 closed back. I just do want to make that clear. Open back, have the sound of an open back, but they don't feel like air is blowing into the side of your headphones. It's not that wide open and airy. Just my perspective on it. And then use cases here. So where would you use these 990s? Why would you want a pair of these? How are these different than the 770s? Listening, like just flat out enjoying a YouTube video, enjoying music, enjoying whatever it is. I think these are good for an audio file. Mastering and making edits, again, because this to me is how the audience is going to be listening on a more fun-shaped, a more V-shaped frequency response curve, and these headphones provide it. So I want to kind of simulate how the end product will be enjoyed. And gaming, yeah, you want all of the different, frequencies of gaming, the highs, the lows. You want to hear when something explodes, perhaps. This set of headphones is definitely gonna help you feel that. Now, open back, again, audio will escape through the side. So if you're trying to be silent and quiet, yeah, these headphones don't do it. And I would also not use these in a recording situation, like right now. Here's why. I put these on, sound escapes through the side. Where do you think that sound can get right back into? This microphone, this condenser microphone, which loves to pick up everything, will pick up the sound from my headphones. So I do not use this. I would not use this in a recording situation. All things considered, and I've got to be honest, I've pumped these up. I've told you how great these are, and that's true, but I just wouldn't use them in exactly every single situation. So the DT990 Pros, by the way, 250 ohm version is what I'm modeling here and what I'm reviewing. Again, I think these are among the most underrated out there, and there's a ton of choices. And these aren't perfect. A little bit older, they don't fold up into a nice small design, but if you're looking for everyday use, everyday enjoyment, if you want a pair of headphones that live like at your desk, for example, and give you a really good audio experience from morning till evening, can't recommend these enough. I think they come in at a pretty respectable price point, and they're not perfect, but they're about as close as I've found. Let me know if you have these, or if you like these, or if you're going to get these, or what you think about this video. Don't forget to subscribe, or also like this video to help out my channel. Thank you. Hey everybody, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. I always appreciate you being here, and to be honest, I've had a lot of fun starting, building, and growing this YouTube channel. But I also want to kind of share something that basically came to my attention. Yeah, I do some consultation services for those of you with a home studio or people out there who are creating content in a home studio environment. I'm here to help you, and not just with the YouTube channel. I'm talking about on a one-on-one basis doing some consultation. And I don't advertise this. I really have never promoted this. But that being said, I've had more than a handful of people come my way in the last couple of years. They contact me via email, and they're looking for specific assistance, trying to make their vocal chain sound better, their background look better. Like here in the home studio, how can I use lighting and cameras and do something at home that looks quite professional? So I've not really put myself out there for this, but I have been doing this, and I thought, why shouldn't I just publicly announce this? So that's what I'm here for you, not just on this channel with free advice and videos that you can archive and look up anytime, but also one-on-one. If you need that, we can connect virtually. More on that in just a second. But yeah, there have been a lot of professionals who have moved to home studio situations across the last couple years, all things considered. And it definitely does not look like that trend across the industry in media production. It does not look like that's changing anytime soon. So now is the opportunity to get yourself squared away in the right way in a home studio, right? Just like this, just like what I've built here at my house, the ability to create professional quality content and not ever have to even leave my home. And I've also been contacted by a lot of people who use similar gear as I do. Now, I can work with anybody in any different situation, but a lot of people see the YouTube videos and say, hey, I've got a Neumann, or hey, I'm using a Soundcraft mixer, or hey, I've got an A10 Mini Pro, or I use an Apollo Twin X, or I've got a Stream Deck, or how do I make those keynote presentations, or what gear are you using? I mean, that's why I'm here, to share my expertise, and not just 20 years of broadcast production and field shoots and studio operations, but also most specifically my last couple years of setting up this home studio. I've learned so much. I'm going to help you here on the YouTube channel, but I can also help you in person. So I say in person, virtually. That's basically how we're doing it. But consultations can go over anything from your studio space, if you want to improve that, to lighting, how to do that properly, backgrounds. I mean, that is so much more important than you think. I can definitely do those consultations. Audio, video, gear, cameras, microphones, cables, mixers, all that stuff. Room acoustics, how to make it so your spare bedroom can sound like a recording studio. It's way more important than you think or realize, trust me. Or also, a lot of people are into voiceover. They're trying to get their signal chain down pat. How do you get that unique sound? Because quite honestly, even the best microphone in the world, out of the box, it sounds good, but you can make it sound great with a certain amount of EQ and processing and know-how of the devices that you already have possession of, whether it's an Apollo, whether it's a different interface, whether you're post-producing it. How can you make this sound its best using your skill and your know-how? So I do consultations of all types. Here's how it works. All virtual, right? So connecting via Zoom or a platform of your choice, something that really wasn't prevalent more than 3 years ago, but it's here and now, and I am so happy to use it. I typically like to set up 2 sessions. In the first session, we'll take stock of your gear, your space, your setup. I want to see as much as I can on camera, have you describe it. I want to hear samples, but also I definitely want to understand your goals. What are you trying to get out of getting better? Like, what are you aiming for in your home studio situation? So that's the first meeting. We'll record some samples, whether it's audio or video or both. And then we'll eventually have a second session where we'll make some refinements, some tweaks, we'll visit some suggestions, we'll revisit some things, and hopefully we'll arrive at some final settings that you can stick with for the long term. And then, of course, after that, I'm always available for follow-up consultations, but I really want to make this clear. It's not my goal to visit you over and over and all the time. And I'm honestly not doing this for financial gain. I enjoy helping people out. Yes, I do need proper compensation just for my time, but I'm not doing it for much more than that. The biggest thing is that I can help you, I can keep this channel running, and I can meet more people individually, help them out in their situation. So I'm trying to make it a situation where I help you be self-sufficient in your own home studio. I don't want to be your studio manager, so to speak. So I'll put all the information down below in the description of this video, how to contact me, and again, some details about what we do here in consultations. But thank you so much for being here on the channel. I know this was kind of a promotion or an advertisement, a departure from what we normally do here, but I just wanted to let you know, if you need specific help, I'm here for you, and I'm not hard to find. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro, and this time around, I'm actually hoping you will not notice that I'm using a teleprompter. In fact, here's proof. And when you think about it, right, isn't that the whole trick about using assistants like this during your presentation? To make it seem like you're actually not using it. So in this video, 6 total tips, including the most important one coming your way last. By the way, my background in all of this is more than 20 years as a presenter on television. I would guess that 95% of my total broadcasting has been done off the cuff, and maybe 5% has ever been read off a teleprompter. And while I don't necessarily prefer it, I do certainly see a purpose for it, and I've got a lot of experience to share with it here in this video. So let's begin with number 1. It definitely helps if you're reading something you actually wrote, and preferably if it was formatted to be spoken out loud. That, as opposed to something that was written like a novel would be. Anybody who's written copy for television knows that sounding conversational is key. The words you choose, the pauses you introduce. It's important to write in the same way you would sound in normal conversation. And you know what? With that said, no offense to the teleprompter, but for the sake of this video, I think I'm done with it. I'm going back off the cuff. I don't want to do this thing entirely off the prompter. You got enough of a sample. By the way, you can quickly see that I'm simply doing this with my iPhone right below the camera. That is a very cheap and usually efficient way of doing it. It would be better if I had the one-sided glass with the reflective mirror, put the prompter on the bottom, have the glass right in front of the camera. Then I could look right at the lens. Instead, I'm looking just below it, but I'm not sure anybody could tell. Anyway, I digress. Number 1, write conversationally. That's going to help you, and like I said, especially if you're the one who wrote your own copy, as opposed to reading somebody else's words. That's always going to be different and difficult. See? And now I'm not perfect because I'm not reading. Number 2, give your script, give your copy a once-over. Whether you wrote it or not, whether somebody else did it for you, whether you did it a week ago or 5 minutes ago, it's only going to enhance your copy and make it sound even more conversational the more times you just go over it, read it, small changes, and do this either for rehearsal or to make those minor alterations. I'm telling you, sometimes just the crafting of a different word or a comma in a different place or a ... And we'll talk about pausing later, which is so necessary. You're going to write so differently than you would for a school paper, a book report. There's writing for reading and there's writing for speaking. Obviously, we're catering to the second half of that. So definitely give your script, give your copy a once-over. And if you can, read it off the prompter for your once-over. Focus when you're reading on sentences, not individual words. So it gets difficult. It gets monotonous if I'm looking at the prompter here and looking one word at a time. Try and take the bigger context of each sentence at a time, maybe even each paragraph at a time. If you focus word for word on such a small screen and surface area like this, you are inevitably going to sound, number 1, robotic, or number 2, potentially get lost. and what these words sequentially actually mean in the bigger picture. So try and focus on the bigger scale, not word for word. That'll help in your reading and in your smoothness. Okay, pausing and pacing. This is still so very important to come across as natural, and the big way you do it is to pause and pace yourself with a natural delivery. I don't think anybody speaks like a machine where they are talking like this over and over without any pauses or breaks in sentences, and then it is just a monotonous run-on. I don't even know what to say, but you understand my point there. Naturally, when I'm talking to you, I'll pause. I'll think about it. I might even stumble over a few words. That's fine. That lets you know that I'm human. You know, certainly there is a time and a place and an occasion for getting something absolutely right, nailing it. And I've got a whole separate video on when and why you would want to use a teleprompter, not just tips on how to perform with one. But as you read, pause and pace to the writing. Set yourself up with the writing so that it pauses and paces you properly. And then when you execute it, make sure that you're actually giving those pauses. It gets a little bit too easy to get in a flow with that teleprompter. And now the one I'm using here, I should have pointed this out, is automated. The phone is hearing me and pacing out the text for me. You might find yourself in a more advanced studio situation where somebody with a dial, with a knob, is actually running your teleprompter, or you, with a foot pedal, are running your own teleprompter. Don't try and just chase that pacing. Have it chase you. Have the teleprompter keep up with you and your pacing. Don't be the one to follow the pace. If you're doing it right, you're leading the pacing. The person or machine or whatever that is running the text is keeping up with you, not the other way around. So there you go. You got that phone? I'm pacing you on this one. Okay. Number 5 here, know the controller. And that's a big part of this. What is running the teleprompter? In this case, it's the phone, hearing my words, processing it, going with the text, and keeping that blue line up to pace of where I'm at in this script and what I'm saying. Sometimes it could be a human, right? So maybe you could even have a chat with your prompter operator. Hey, I'm going to go fast on this part, or I might read this a little bit more slowly, or I'm going to take a break in this one, just so you know. If you can have that communication ahead of time, whether you're live or whether you're performing something for a recording, yeah, communicate with the prompter operator. Let them know. But also for you as the presenter, know who and what and how this prompter is being controlled. That's very important. Okay, last, but 1,000% the most, right? This is last, but definitely not least. No matter what you're doing with a prompter, especially if you are in a live environment where there's no second takes, second chances, there's no going back. If you are relying on the teleprompter for all of your script, for all of your content, all of your performance, always have a paper script ready. You know why? Because that paper script is not going to run out of battery. The screensaver is not going to go on. The prompter operator is not going to lose you on paper. That paper is always going to exist right in front of you. The chances of it failing are 0. Actually, 99.9% success rate. There's that 0.1% chance that the wind blows it away. But that's a totally separate problem. The paper backup during a live environment is so critical. I've been here before. Trust me, during a live show. You know what? Don't need the script. I've got it on the prompter. I'll be good. Uh-oh. I get halfway through the script and the prompter, for whatever reason, fails, disappears, goes in reverse, screen blacks out, whatever. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. It's technology. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. No offense. You can screw up sometimes. Always do yourself the favor of having a paper script nearby. You can refer to it. You can quickly catch up with where you are. It is a fail-safe in something that is inevitably bound to go wrong at least once in your presenting career. So hopefully you stuck around in this video long enough to get that last and most important tip. This has been reading from the prompter. I think this is something important, right? Not a lot of people have experience doing this. I do, because I've been in television for more than 20 years. I've got tons of experience. And like I said, I've actually grown to prefer not using it. But there are some situations where I do think this is the perfect tool to get things right when you need it. So hopefully that helps. Thumbs up on this video if it provided you some value. Also, don't forget, subscribe here to this channel, Home Studio Pro. You know I've got lots more great stuff coming out your way really soon. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. This is going to be a quick video, but also a relatively important one as we define two totally different things. What is the difference between a pop filter and wind foam for a microphone? A lot of times you'll hear a pop shield or a wind filter or some combination of both. These are two different things that serve entirely different functions, but a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this too, we mix them up, we combine them, we make them one, or we get them totally wrong. We mean one thing, we say the other. Anyway, welcome to the channel, Home Studio Pro. Subscribe if you like this type of stuff, and thumbs up on this video at the end if it provided you with some value. So what is a pop filter? Well, it's a protection filter. It literally deflects moving air, right? And I guess wind foam kind of does that too, but it more blankets it. This is literally to take air that's going in and deflect it in a downward different direction. Hang on. Got one right here. Look at that. Okay, this is the Stedman 101 wind foam. And literally if air comes in here and it comes down, it like the grates on this, it's really hard to spell this out, but it'll take air that hits it and it will push it down away from the capsule of the microphone so that I do not pop. Pop plosive, pop plosive, pop plosive. Oh, pop plosive. See? Like, that's what it does. It deflects moving air. It doesn't trap it. It doesn't insulate the mic from it. It literally pushes it away from the capsule. These are usually, quite thin, as you can see here. I mean, look at when it's sideways, you can barely almost even see it. These are not custom usually to the mic. A wind foam is custom to the mic. It sits at a certain size around the diameter of the microphone. It's really usually custom built, custom made to the microphone. But generally speaking, pop filters are not custom to the mic. They're usually circular. They mount on somewhere here and they sit right in front of the mic. Between the mouth and the microphone is the pop filter. And generally speaking, the pop filter does not alter the sound. Maybe because it's metal. Sometimes these are mesh. This one is metal, by the way. They're so thin that frequencies just kind of go right through this, even though, I mean, there's perforation here. It's not a solid material, but it doesn't generally alter any one particular region of the frequency spectrum. It really doesn't. A pop filter is pretty good at just doing its job, deflecting that moving air from one source. And that's why you see a lot of these in studio situations. You don't see these outside because air could be coming from any direction, hence the wind foam, hence our next conversation. But generally speaking, in a studio where the air is only coming out of my mouth when I say pee, pop, or bees have plosives too, but generally that's the reason why those are used in the studio. And yeah, they don't alter sound. They're very transparent. As opposed to wind foam. Here we go. Here's a big one from this is the SM7B's close talk wind foam, the larger one. This is more of a protection cover, right? Like when you put this on the microphone, like it protects the capsule, it protects the whole diaphragm area, the business end of the microphone. Now this actually absorbs moving air. It can't really deflect it. I mean, this is, at some point in here, this is probably a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch thick on the inside. Oh, look there it is on the screen, 1/4 to a 1/2 inch thick. But it absorbs the air like out of your mouth or the ambient air from actual wind. It catches it. Basically, it tries to, like a blanket, it insulates the microphone from that. It's got a snug fit, a custom fit, usually on the microphone. But what I really want to share with you is that wind foam can alter the sound on your microphone. It's like literally putting a sock over your ear. How is that different? And I know companies try so hard to design these to be acoustically transparent, and you hear that a lot. I mean, I think Neumann makes one for this microphone that costs like $60 to $80 or something, and they say it's acoustically transparent. It's not. It's impossible to make something a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch thick, stick it over the microphone, and have it sound the exact same. It's just impossible. Usually it's the higher end frequencies like the 8 to 10,000 hertz range that suffer, that get cut off the most when you put on a wind foam. But I will tell you the value of this, right, is literally if this microphone were outside, we were broadcasting outside and wind is coming from all different directions. By the way, this mic will never be outside. A wind foam will protect it from a gust, making the capsule become disturbed and basically popping the microphone, right? So this can alter the sound. This is like an ultimate shield, a last case scenario for recording. Don't sacrifice the sound of your mic. If you've got plosives, put a pop filter on. I almost said pop screen, pop filter. And I guess pop screen is okay, but usually it's pop filter and wind foam. Those are the ones I feel like, cut the line in half, make it easiest. Yeah, pop filter, wind foam. So there you go. Now you know the difference. I think the wind foam sounds not as great usually. I think the pop filter doesn't look great to, like, if I constantly had this on the mic, this would make my videos kind of feel awkward. Now, how do I get around this? You're asking, wait, Brody, why don't you have a pop filter or a wind foam on your mic? Don't you have plosives? Yes, I do. But I have a whole separate video out on mic technique. This microphone, the way I've placed it at a 45-degree angle, the way I talk kind of across it, any wind, any plosives that are coming out of my mouth, Peter Piper would like to promote his Pepper podcast. Instead of, the air is coming this way and not into the mic capsule of the diaphragm. So I'm literally speaking across the axis of the microphone so that, and I've got, trained on mic technique for more than 2 decades. So I don't pop my peas into the microphone, but some people pop their peas into the microphone. They do that. So you can avoid it, but a pop filter, no shame in using it. A wind foam, last ditch effort usually is how I see it. Hey, thanks for being here. Subscribe to Home Studio Pro if you like this type of stuff. I've got lots more on the way. And thumbs up on this video if it ultimately provided you with some value. I'll see you next time. This actually happens quite often. I hear a piece of audio, a voiceover that's been recorded with a really good microphone in a really good quality studio situation, but it has no EQ, it's got no compression, it just has no, sizzle to it. And if you need the example of it, right, you're hearing me at this moment fully processed, but let me just show you the quick A/B on it. Here's what it sounds like when I take off all the processing from this microphone through the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X, right? I mean, this is a clear difference as opposed to this fully processed audio. Now, I'm doing all of this in real time, but what if I told you you could take things you recorded, put them into Adobe Audition, and have them come out sounding so much better? Let me show you exactly how this is done. So we're first going to go into Audition, scratch that. I'm actually going to go here and turn off all of my vocal processing. So the U87 straight into the Apollo, no additional processing. That's the way it's going to be recorded here. I'm going to hit record. I'm going to read a little sample script. It's actually a description of this microphone, the U87, and then we'll get into processing it with stock plugins to make it sound better. Okay, here we go. The Neumann U87 AI is probably the best known and most frequently used studio microphone the world over. Its smooth and refined sound is as iconic as its elegant exterior design. The U87 AI is the standard microphone for speech and vocals. 3 polar patterns plus pad and low-cut options make it adaptable to a wide range of applications. Introduced in 1967, it has shaped the sound of countless hit records for the past 50 years. And when those hits were announced on the radio, many a DJ sat before a U87 AI. The legend continues to this day. No professional recording studio is complete without a Neumann U87 AI. Okay, let me hit stop on that. Let me, for the time being, bring back the processing here on my microphone. Okay, so now it's sounding how it normally does, but you'll hear this played back, The Neumann U87AI is probably the best known and most frequently used studio microphone the world over. Not bad, right? And let me just double check here. Oh, let me turn off all of the processing. Okay. Its smooth and refined sound is as iconic as its elegant exterior design. So you heard me record it. Now you're hearing it, completely raw and untouched. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in some EQ. I'll bring up the parametric equalizer. Now, there is a little bit of debate, you might even say controversy on this. Do you EQ or compress the audio first in a voiceover? I'm not here to tell you one way is completely right or wrong, one or the other, but the way I do it and what I believe in is that you want to EQ the voice first because the compression is the end result. It's the magnifier. You're bringing all the lowest levels up and the highest levels down. You're really kind of gluing things together, but you're amplifying. At the end, you're amplifying. So why would you want to amplify everything versus doing all your cuts and your boosts and then amplifying the things that you like? Does that make sense? Okay, so we're going to EQ here before we hit the compressor. And here's kind of just a curve that I came up with. I'll play this in the background. I'll kind of mess with it. I've got a 60 hertz low cut here. I'm high cutting at, 16,000 hertz. Let me see what else. There is a bit of a boost at about 96 hertz, just inside 100, 4.2 dB. I'm just kind of feeling these things out. A cut at 270, a cut at 775, a slight push at 4,500, another slight push all the way up here into the 7,700 range. Here's how it sounds with a little bit of EQ. The U87AI is the standard microphone for speech and vocals. 3 polar patterns plus pad and low cut options. Sounds a little bit, it's got more of a V shape to it. Now watch this. I'll play it. I'll turn the EQ on and off as we go. You'll watch where my mouse is, that little green button right there. When it's off, I'm taking the EQ away to make it adaptable to a wide range of applications. Introduced in 1967, it has shaped the sound of countless hit records for the past 50 years. And when those hits were announced on the radio, many a DJ sat before a U87AI. Okay, so quite honestly, and some might say I'm even over EQing this, you can go subtle. I think this is pronounced. I want you to hear a difference. I want you to hear a bit of a sizzle here. So I'm going to apply this EQ curve right there. Okay, it changes the waveform just a little bit. Here's how I initially recorded it, and here's how it looks and sounds with EQ on it. 3 polar patterns plus pad and low cut options make it adaptable to a wide range of applications. Okay, so that's the EQ. Now, we need compression. There are a couple little spikes here. I mean, you can tell that my voice didn't alter in volume that greatly throughout the course of just reading that script, but I want to kind of, tame the peaks here, and I want to bring up the lowest parts. So now I'll highlight this entire thing. I'll go into effects. I'll go into amplitude and compression. I'll go into single band compressor. Now, you can see here with the levels that if I set my threshold at about 15.2 dB, negative 15, that's going to kind of cut. It basically, think of these as treetops up here. I'm going to cut below those treetops at that 15 dB mark, right? So I'll show you what that looks like. By the way, the ratio is 4:1. That's fairly common. The higher the ratio, the really flatter it's going to get at the very top of those peaks. I like a quick attack and a quick release for me, for voice, and I don't want to add any output gain. I will add some output gain at the very end when it cuts off these peaks. Okay, so here's what it looks like if I cut 15. Okay, so now here's what it looked like before compression, and here's what it looks like after. Slight difference, right? Like it's significant, but it's not overdoing it. Overdoing it, let me give you an example of that. Overdoing it would be cranking this all the way down to let's just do 24, right? So that versus that is a big difference. So I'm going to come back in here and you know what? I should have just let you hear how it sounds. Its smooth and refined sound is as iconic as its elegant exterior design. The U87AI is the standard microphone for speech and vocal. You can kind of hear it's like breathing in there and everything. So let's leave the EQ how it was. Let's go back here to amplitude and compression. Let's do our single band compressor. Let's take it back here to where we started. What did we say? About 15.1. That's fine. We'll cut it right in there. Okay, so now I'm just going to add that final bit of amplification, kind of the makeup gain, but manually here. I'll bring the levels up to where I think they're suitable where they ought to be. And then I'm just going to play this. I'll let you hear the after and then the before. I'll kind of make it obvious here. You'll see me clicking on the original file, the recording, versus the final step here in the history. But I'll make it obvious of when you're hearing the after versus the before. So let's begin with the final product. The Neumann U87AI is probably the best known and most frequently used studio microphone the world over. Its smooth and refined sound is as iconic as its elegant exterior design. The U87AI is the standard microphone for speech and vocals. 3 polar patterns plus pad and low-cut options make it adaptable to a wide range of applications. Introduced in 1967, it has shaped the sound of countless hit records for the past 50 years. And when those hits were announced on the radio, many a DJ sat before a U87AI. All right, so I just think it's quite obvious that anything you do can sound just a little bit better. Now, maybe I compressed an extra amount. Maybe I added a little bit more juice on the EQ. Maybe I really wanted this to sizzle. And maybe that's just how my ears like it best. Maybe that's my preference. I think in radio, they do it even more, but you can find the comfortable medium. I think that's what I'm trying to say here. If you're doing an audiobook, maybe you don't want that level of EQ or compression, but a little bit, right? Some of it. The amount of seasoning you put in your cooking is up to you, but just to know you can add this flavor to your audio recordings and you can really make your voiceovers, in my opinion, sound that much better. So hopefully all of this helped you out. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, Home Studio Pro. Really appreciate that. And if this video provided you with some value, consider giving it a thumbs up. That would really help me greatly. Well, I apologize if you clicked on this video and thought it was actually going to be ASMR. It's not. I've already blown out your headphones and your eardrums. This is Home Studio Pro. We're here to talk about microphones for ASMR content creation. Now, most of you know what ASMR is, but for the small percentage who don't and still clicked on this video, it's autonomous sensory meridian response. It's the tingles, right? That tingling sensation you sometimes get. It starts and it feels like it's up here on your scalp and then maybe down your spine, and goosebumps and chills all down your body. And there's no real rhyme or reason how we get these, why we get these, what is the body actually doing. Most times they're completely unexpected when they happen in real life. But a lot of people tune into specific YouTube videos that are made and enjoyed for this very purpose, to get the full experience of ASMR. And when you tune into these videos, by the way, it's a huge genre of content here on YouTube. It's usually somebody brushing the microphone, making that brushing sound, or maybe even popping the plastic padding pieces right there, or somebody whispering into the microphone, or somebody scratching the microphone, or a lot of nail clicking. There's just a lot of noises that trigger this sense in humans that they enjoy, and there are some benefits. Some say it's stress reduction. Some say it helps them sleep. There are things people buy into in terms of healing with ASMR. I'm not here to judge or confirm or deny, but I definitely do know I've watched some videos, and it does give me the tingles, so something is working. But back to the microphones. ASMR, like to make a good video, you need really great audio. And great audio, as you know on this channel, means the right microphones, the right processing, and ultimately, kind of most importantly, the right space. And again, I don't necessarily mean how it looks, but in this case especially, how it sounds. Because your volume and your gain is going to be turned way up to capture that low volume whispering. And so all the flaws of your room might be distracting, might be disturbing to some ASMR viewers. So what do you need to make a good ASMR video audio-wise? What are the things you should prioritize? Number one, there's no question about it, you need a condenser mic as opposed to a dynamic mic. Don't ever make an ASMR video with the Shure SM7B, right? This one is not sensitive enough. It's not detailed enough. The reason that you need a condenser is because you need to pick up all the mouth clicks and the sounds and every last, bit of sensory information. That is what a condenser mic is going to pick up for you. It's not necessarily something that a dynamic will. So let's be clear, condenser mics only, powered mics only. Number 2, you might need a stereo signal. Now, whether that is done with 2 microphones, like a U87 here and a U87 there, you whisper into this one, you whisper into that one, or if it's a microphone that has a pickup pattern of stereo, like one on each side, or it's an XY mic, it doesn't necessarily matter, but you generally, for good ASMR, you want to create a stereo signal. That way it replicates the effect of somebody talking into this ear when I lean this way, and somebody talking into this ear when I lean in that way. So stereo signal, ultimately important for the most part with ASMR. Okay, your microphone should also have extremely low self-noise. Now, I think that's obvious. When I say self-noise, I mean no hiss. You are going to be cranking the gain on this microphone. So when you turn it all the way up, you want silence. So that when I talk at this volume right here, right, that it's not overdone with hiss and room tone. You want it to be as quiet as possible. And part of your processing here at number 4 should be a natural signal chain. Now, there's some processing going on as you're hearing my voice through this microphone right now. Some would say even extreme processing. Thanks, by the way, to everybody who says the chain sounds great, but I would not necessarily process ASMR video like it sounds here now. There's way too much emphasis on compression and bass and low end. I would actually turn most of the processing off on this mic right now if I were making an ASMR video. And then last but certainly not least is you need a low reverb space to make your ASMR videos. Now, I've seen some tremendous ASMR artists making unbelievably compelling content, stuff that just keeps me vexed and fixated for 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time, and they're doing it in their bedroom, which is fine. I mean, their channels get a lot of views, a lot of hits, a lot of success, I'm sure a lot of revenue, but man, it would be so much better with a space that was at least a little bit acoustically treated. You think about the product and the end result. It's good enough. But it could always be better. And that's what we're here about on this channel, is to always up the value of things you create, including ASMR. So I really want you to think about, how can you deaden the room? How can you lower the reverberations in your room? How can you record this maybe kind of building a pillow fort around you, or in a space with a lot of books or curtains, in a space where when you snap or clap, it doesn't echo like a big long hallway or an empty bathroom, something like that. How can you eliminate your voice, even when whispering, bouncing from wall to wall to wall, or obviously other noises from around the house? How can you lower all the other noises so that they don't come across on the video? The ideal ASMR microphone. I'm here to recommend it to you because I own one. I've used it a ton. The price point is intimidating, and especially if you need 2 of these, and yeah, you kind of need 2 of these for that whole stereo imaging thing. The Neumann TLM103, a little bit north of $1,000, but this microphone, ultimate detail, ultimate frequency curve for the voice, ultimate low in self-noise. This is the end game mic, in my opinion, if you are making ASMR videos. Again, I realize the cost might prohibit a lot of people from owning or utilizing it, but that one in my mind is top of the list. Other great ones that intrigue me, I've never owned an AKG C414, but I've seen others use it. I've listened to the quality of the audio, can highly recommend that mic. It also has a lot of the great features. It's a condenser, multiple patterns, low self-noise. I have owned previously a Rode NT1. Now, that one comes in at a lot cheaper cost. The 414, about the $1,000 range. The NT1 is about the $200 range. Now, again, you do need 2 of these to do it right, but that NT1 condenser, low self noise, great detail. It would work well for you. And also here, that odd looking microphone setup on the far right next to me here, that is the FreeSpace Pro 2 by 3DO. And it does have a unique design like actual ears, but the microphones, as you would guess, are inside the ear canals, and that helps it create that binaural audio effect and that stereo imaging, which sounds so real when you listen to it back. And you'll see a lot of times ASMR artists will be whispering in one ear, whispering in the other ear. It really does replicate what the human head and brain computes into a stereo sound. So I've never actually used it. I've seen it used. I can highly recommend it based on the product that it creates. So I'm highly intrigued by those three. But that's all about the ASMR microphone side of things. Again, hopefully this video helped you, gave you some ideas. If you make ASMR videos, here's how to take it to the next level with those priorities I mentioned before. If this video provided you value, thumbs up on it. I greatly appreciate that. Also, subscribe to this channel. I've got lots more great home studio content coming your way right around the corner. Hey, welcome back to Home Studio Pro. This video is designed to answer an interesting question, an evolving question. When should you use a teleprompter? Either somewhere professional or even in your home studio. For example, I've got a version of a teleprompter here operating right now. You can see I'm clearly and plainly not reading from it, but it's just my iPhone mounted above the monitor, hi there, and below the camera. So it's simple for me to look at while I'm addressing the camera. I'm not sure if you can tell when I'm reading or when I'm looking right at the lens. But the question is, because of the accessibility of new prompting software and devices, when should you be using something like this in a home studio situation? What type of content would dictate this? When is it wrong to use a teleprompter? When is it actually not in your best interest? So a couple different ways that we'll be looking at this. Number one, I will always prefer a teleprompter when I have to get the timing or when I have to get the words perfect. And I'm mostly talking about life and death situations, an obituary, a life tribute, some serious news, something that actually has tangible ramifications to it, something that's not just sports commentary, right? Which is what I do for the day job. That stuff comes and goes, and if you don't exactly nail it, it's not the biggest thing. But if you absolutely have to get your words perfect, and you'll sacrifice a little bit of the natural delivery just to make sure what you said was as designed, then fine, go ahead and use the teleprompter. Again, I don't do a lot of prompting or prompter reading these days. It's probably down to like 1 or 2% of everything I do, hundreds and thousands of hours a year. So it's a minimal amount, but I still will use it for specific occasions like this when I've got to get it perfect. Number two, I would use a teleprompter when you have to hit exact times. If I'm just off the cuff and I'm trying to go exactly 3 minutes, I'll look at this video right now. I'm, just over the 2-minute mark. But how do I know if I've got a clock running and I want to get everything in and I don't even have a script or I don't want to keep looking up and down? A teleprompter, for the most part, is going to keep you on topic. It's going to keep you precise with your words, but it's also going to keep you usually nails on time. And especially if you rehearse this a few opportunities or times ahead, if you go over this once or twice, you can get it down almost to a science that your timing will be plus or minus only a couple seconds off. So it obviously helps for unique situations and timelines when you've got to get it right with the words or with the time. Obviously, a teleprompter is in your best interest. There's also this, you might want to use a teleprompter in your home studio if you're looking to spend less time in production, because memorizing is difficult. Now, I'm doing kind of the hybrid approach here in the home studio where I've got the presentation, so I'm kind of cheating with these words that are on the screen, but the real way to make a video very quick would be to write everything out and simply read it once or twice over, because I might spend, recording a 6-minute video, even 12 minutes if I did it just twice reading, right? 6 plus 6. But if I sat here without a script and without really a direction of what I wanted to say, It might take me 25 minutes just to make that 6-minute video because I'm stuttering and I'm rambling and I want to do something over again. Or you know what? I don't like that. Hit stop and hit record again and let's start it from scratch. I still do that. I start and stop videos all the time. I just didn't like where it was going. But if you're reading off a teleprompter, then you can pretty much nail it the first time, nail it every time after practice. So yeah, memorizing is difficult. If you want to cut down on your production time, maybe use a prompter. I'll also say this, though, as a negative to prompter reading, reading off of something like this, which is actually, just my iPhone. It's not even the fancy version of a teleprompter. But reading off of a screen on camera makes 90% of presenters look weird. And that's only because of one thing. It's not that they're not capable of it. They just don't have a lot of practice in it. I've got thousands of hours of practice reading off of a teleprompter. I'm not saying that with pride. It's just the reality of it. But for somebody who's brand new at it, reading word for word can make them look a little robotic when they are, and then maybe if they're even looking away from the screen because the prompter is over there. Now, doesn't this look very weird if I am now talking to you like this? Of course it does. I'm not natural. I'm not at the lens. I'm not speaking with a normal tone or cadence. So yeah, reading off a prompter for somebody who's never done it or rarely does it, it's going to make at least 90% of these performers look weird on camera. How do you fix it? Yes, with practice and with rehearsal. And also a quick tip is to have the presenter reading their own words. That's inevitably going to make them a lot more comfortable. I will also say that it's fashionable these days here on YouTube and a lot of different places to just do jump cuts, right? So let's say I record that 25-minute video just to try and make a 6-minute video. I've got a lot of extra words and stumbles in there, or second and third takes to just cut out. But those jump cuts are something that people live with. Now, if I read off a prompter, realistically, I should be able to start to finish, read the script in one take without any jump cuts. And you know what I'm talking about, the cut here, cut there for every different word that I'm saying. Should I show you what that looks like? Okay, here, I'll edit this after the fact. Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about teleprompting. Don't forget to like and subscribe this video or subscribe to this channel. See, I made a mistake, but I'll edit all of that down. Anyway, mistakes make us human. I think mistakes are okay to make in your delivery. But some people like to cut things down. Those jump cuts, again, they feel more natural than ever these days on YouTube, and people are okay with them. So in that case, you don't even really need to use a teleprompter if you're okay with that. So hopefully some of this helped you out. Again, teleprompter technology and the idea of it is enticing. I'm also here to say that people prefer natural these days too. They would rather have me just speak from the heart. They'll take my imperfections and roll with that instead of me looking, like a rehearsed network news anchor that may not have the same authenticity as speaking right directly to the lens. So let me know if that helps you out. If you have any other presenting tips or home studio questions that you're looking for from me, go to my About section of this channel, find my email address, or just put a comment down below. Also, thumbs up on this video if it provided you some value, and don't forget, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time here on Home Studio Pro. In this video, I'm going to run you through 5 facts of an audio device that I've had for more than 4 years now, and one that I use on an everyday basis here in the home studio. It's the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X interface. And contrary to what most people think, this is what I'm doing all of my real-time audio processing with, because a lot of people see me here in this home studio. They see these rack-mounted DBX units, the 286S and the 266XS, and they figure that that's what my mic is going through. And yes, it is going through these right now, but it's not actually going through these and ending up on the final audio chain or recording. So this is all kind of just for show. What I'm actually using is this Apollo Twin X. I've come to know it. I've come to love it. I highly recommend it, but I also want to share these 5 facts, whether you have one and you're just interested to hear what I say about it, or you're considering the purchase. There are some things I feel confident in sharing after the last 4 years. Number one, you're going to love it. I mean, this is a certified professional level piece of gear. You know, some things that we buy and use in a home studio, either it feels consumer or a bit plasticky, or I pop the microphone there. It just has a different feel, like not of the highest grade. Or when you're using it, like the preamp has a little bit of hiss, or there's some extra latency in the signal here. Just something's not right. I guarantee, like when you feel this, use this, kind of vibe with the Apollo Twin X, you'll understand, like you'll get what I'm saying. This is a professional level piece of gear. It is built to last the test of time. It's built to be flexible. It's built to change over time. I really feel like this is an investment. And of course, it is a lot more than most people have ever spent, probably at that point, on buying an audio interface. But it's going to deliver, and it's going to open up so many doors if that's what you're intending to use it for in the long term. Speaking of that, it's important that you know whatever you spend on the Apollo Twin X, you're probably also going to spend even more money on plugins that you will eventually need or just flat out want. And that's the way the UAD ecosystem works, right? They don't necessarily always come out with a bunch of new things, but there's so many plugins that you do get to explore on